All right, we are live and we are toasting in. Cheers.
Cheers, Chris.
So, Johnny, you got a Pepsi there.
I do. That's my hard stuff tonight. Yeah.
Tony, the usual for you.
Sure, why not?
What is your drink of choice, Tony?
Midwest Miller Lite.
Ah, okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. I was a Miller Lite guy back in my drinking days.
It's still the usual for me, Jameson and Guinness.
Uh-oh.
There you go. Oh man, Dennis.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what, man. That'll put hair on the bottom of your feet right there, brother.
Oh, I have it.
Yeah.
I got some hairy feet.
Well, I'm sure you do drinking that Guinness stuff, boy. Woo.
Well, I can't do it like I used to. I mean,
No.
Yeah, I used to. It was,
I like a little shot of whiskey every once in a while myself, man. But it's Gentleman Jack or
Gentleman Jack is good.
The big thing in Nashville though is Fireball, man. Everybody drank that.
Oh, yeah.
See, that's a dangerous drink because it's got so much sugar in it.
Oh, good Lord, yeah, man. You'd be flying by the second one.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
and I remember my wife and I were, hanging out in Broadway.
Yep.
This wasn't that long ago. It was only a couple of years ago, and
Oh wow.
it was like watching a reality show in real time.
Right.
I mean, people falling down. Matter of fact, I did the NAMM show. When was that? 2021 in Nashville, right? So,
Yep.
Michael calls me up and he goes, "Hey, I got a gig, man. Why don't you, when you get done doing your thing, why don't you come on down? We'll do some
Right.
picking." So my wife comes to pick me up. No joke. My wife comes to pick me up, and these two, I don't know, maybe they were 22, 23-year-old girls, walking down the street, stop and just vomit right there.
Oh. Oh.
It's like,
That's
okay.
typical Nashville, brother. Yeah.
yeah.
Now I'll give you one better. Kimmy was picking me up from a gig one night down there, and she, I got this big old white van. We call Vanna White, man. That's what we used to travel at the time. Big old 15-passenger Chevy 3500 Express van, So anyway, Kimmy comes down because my buddy Ronnie used to ride. We kind of all pile in the van. Well, the next thing we know, we load our gear in the back of the van, then we go to pile in, and man, just like herd of people think it's a taxi cab and all start piling in.
Oh, no.
And my wife's like, no, this is picking up a band here. Oh, you won't take us to the blah blah blah. And Kimmy's like, no, I'm not a taxi cab. It was hilarious, man. I mean, and they were drunker than Cooter Brown, buddy. I tell you. I mean, couldn't even spell their first name, man. It was ridiculous. Didn't even know their first name, let alone not know how to spell it.
Yeah, they probably couldn't even pronounce it if they knew it.
Pull Elmer Fudd on you.
So did you see a lot of that? Because you got to Nashville, what was it, 96?
96, yeah.
Yeah, so you were down there then. I got there in 97. And it was just it was so different then. It was,
man,
as a matter of fact,
those were the good years, Chris.
Yeah, we were talking on the phone the other day, and the first time I heard your name was we were at the KOA, charging up the bus because we were heading to Mesquite,
right?
And my bass player Jimmy Wayne had been down on Broadway that day. For some reason, I didn't go with him. I don't know why I didn't go with him. But he gets on the bus and we're getting ready to roll, and he goes, "Dude, I got to tell you about this guitar player, man." And he starts telling me,
if I find him, man, I'll pay him well.
and all he kept saying, he's like, Hiland. It's Hiland. It's like something Hiland, But he was like so blown away by it, and it was like really fascinating because we'd be and remember, we're leaving Nashville, we're going to Mesquite, Nevada. That's a long drive.
Yeah, man.
And he just keeps talking about and the whole time I'm sitting there going, do you even want me to play the next gig?
Oh man,
it was so cool.
Well, no, I'm so grateful for that, man. And that's how the Nashville word got around, man. I mean, people would come down on the strip, and I guess anybody that moves to Nashville, the first thing you get told, at least back in the 90s, was, hey man, you never know who's going to walk through the door, and offer you a session, and offer you a gig. You just never know. And so even to hear tell that guitar players were going, oh man, you need to hear this Hiland guy. Well, I mean, that really tickles me, brother, because Nashville was just a ball those days, man. I miss those days.
So you came from Maine.
I did.
And what was the impetus to Nashville? I mean, was that always a goal in your mind?
Yeah. I started playing guitar when I was 2.5 years old, and won my first talent show when I was 4, and did my first TV show at 7. Won Talent America at 10. Had my own bluegrass band with my brother and sister Jody and Jerry, because we called the 3 J's. And man, we were in the Down East Country Music Association playing bluegrass. But after seeing Ricky Skaggs at age 10, he was the guy that made me want an electric guitar. Really? Oh yeah, man. When he jumped on that PA speaker with that purple Glazier telly and a bender, man, I was like, that's it. I'm done. That's what I want to do right there. Mm-hmm. So I was begging my dad for a Telecaster at that time, and but I really didn't realize that Ricky's guitar was not a Fender. It was actually a Joe Glazier, and it had a bender in it. No one in Maine knew what a B bender was. Okay. So my whole style began from loving Ricky Skaggs and trying to learn all the B bender licks without one.
So yeah. Yep. That's an interesting theme that we've talked about a lot with guitar players. Is at there was a certain time, obviously before YouTube and before social media, where when you're learning by listening, right? You're listening to your favorite players, and then at one point, based on this idea that you're thinking, oh well, this is the way it sounds, I'm nailing it. So
the B bender licks without one.
Yeah. I'm really bad at pronouncing this, but it was not nystagmus. Yeah. Right. You were born with that, so you're legally blind.
I am. Yeah, I can't see to drive or anything, man. Yeah, it's kind of blows, man. But I've lived with it all my life, so I'm just used to it.
Do you think that was that something that you felt that kind of tweaked your ear?
Oh, indeed, man. I mean, if you remember, Chris, when we talked the other night, brother, it was weird because everybody was coming to my family saying, "What's going to happen to this kid? What's he going to do? He can't see hardly at all. He's what are you going to do with this kid? And so, man, like I said, by age 2.5, my aunt come bringing my dad his father's 1939 J35 Gibson. Wow. And Dad just had it as an heirloom. It was very sentimental to him and sat in his bedroom. But man, I'd go get that old beat up thing out and start plunking around on it. And then next thing I know, I was playing along to commercials and and so, but it was funny because, by the age of 3, I was singing Willie Nelson tunes and Johnny Cash tunes and and next thing I know, oh, bring Johnny to the family reunion, and shoot, I'd come home with $300 or $400. My mom was like, do this more often with this kid.
That's so great.
But the next thing I know, man, they entered me in talent contests, and I'd win them, and then played on Dick Stacy's Jamboree on TV in Bangor, Maine, when I was 7. Wow. And told everybody then that my dream was to play the Grand Ole Opry, which everybody just laughed. Thought, oh man, look at this kid. He's. The guitar's bigger than he is, but then they entered me in Talent America at age 10 and we won it, man. And by that time I was playing guitar, banjo, mandolin, and fiddle in my show. And wow. So it was like all these instruments started coming into play as well. It wasn't just guitar. It was all kinds of instruments. And man, my dad had me, we met a guy named Dave Kenyon in Canada, man. He gave me a 10-minute banjo lesson, dude. And I went out and played Foggy Mountain Breakdown the next weekend like I'd played it 30 years. Wow. One New England banjo champ for the Down East Country Music Association that year, and it's like my parents are like, what is up with this kid? He grabs any instrument and he just plays it. And so I literally went through every instrument in the high school band learning how to play it because my dad literally wanted me to be a high school band director or something and then play or be a teacher and then turn around and play in a local band in the summer times, when teachers get the school year off during the summer. Mm-hmm. But little did he know, when I told folks I wanted to, my dream was to play the Grand Ole Opry, I was not lying. And so So it really shouldn't have been any surprise
Mhm.
to my parents when I said I'm leaving college after 3 years and I'm moving to Nashville. It it didn't go over too well. It went over like a fart in church, really. But I mean, what do you do, man? You got to follow your heart, man.
Right.
Yeah.
And I, luckily enough, man, by the hand of God, and I mean this wholeheartedly, my buddy Sid MacArthur, who was really the first guy to ever come up and offer me a country gig when I was 12. When Dad got me my first Strat and a PV amp, and some DOD pedals and stuff, he came up to the house and offered me my first gig, and we played in bands together all the way through. I turned 21, and when I left college and said I'm going to Nashville, he actually called my mom and dad's house and said, "Look, man, I'm in Florida, dude, Orlando, and I just got back from Nashville, man. You should come down, boy. We'd do well down there." And so I flew to Orlando, met up with Sid, and man, he had this little Pontiac T1000, dude. And by the time we crammed all the gear in it, man, we looked like the Beverly Hillbillies go to Maui, man. It was like a little tiny car with a hatchback, dude, just crammed to the gunnels with boots hanging out. And dude, you couldn't put a letter from home in that thing. We drove to Nashville, man. Got there about 4 a.m, but literally that next morning was Saturday. We went down, met a bunch of people, sat in, and by Sunday we had our first gig. So
wow,
Nashville was really, really good. And like I said, it was barroom boot camp from day one, man. It was, because when you grow up playing in a 3-piece band, dude, and you're doing all the rhythms, all the leads, all the harmony vocals, you get on stage in Nashville with a fiddle player and a steel player, and you start stepping all over them, man. They let you know right quick.
Yes, they do.
Hey, boy, that's your spot. Now fill it, and then shut up.
That's right.
It isn't that bad, but I mean, I say that in jest. It was barroom boot camp. They taught you.
Mm-hmm.
And they did it lovingly, even though some nights it was kind of, older gentlemen going, "Boy, that kid's good, but boy, he just don't shut up, does he? He plays all these licks all the time, and, steps all over us steel players and fiddle players." And so, but then again, I would never trade any moment like that.
Right.
They were so informative and so, like I said, a lot of them were, a lot of the criticism was done out of love, and it taught you, So, and then after that, it was on like Donkey Kong Boys. I was ready for when I got to Nashville, it was all PV amps and rack gear and Strats and Ibanez's with Floyd Roses. And then I literally got a Music Man amp, a 112 with 3 Boss pedals and a Telecaster, and I was on my way.
Wow.
So, yeah.
So how long were you playing on Broadway there, the Strip?
Dude, I played Broadway about 9.5 years.
Wow.
I really did.
But from the time that you started to the first session you got?
A couple of years.
Couple of years. Okay.
But then again, I think that was because a lot of that, man, was learning. It was literally playing with Broadway cats that had been there for years. And as you know, Chris, a lot of the Broadway guys, man, are road dogs, and they play down on Broadway when they come home off the road.
Off the road, yeah.
So to be honest, man, a lot of times I was getting schooled by guys that were out on the road with Tim McGraw or
wow.
or any of the big acts back then, And so
yeah, but
really,
you had
it was awesome, man. I wouldn't trade any of those times.
You put some fear into them too, though.
Yeah, well,
yeah.
I'll be honest with you, man. I think they saw this gullible kid from Maine who was really nice and just was sucking all this stuff up, and they were just like, "Look, man, I don't want to get this kid crying, but he needs to shut up. He needs to stop playing, because everything was 90 knots and no smoke." And I will admit, man, when you grow up in a 3-piece band doing it all, and then you get into Nashville, there were, I would say, more strict rules back in the day. You had to look the part, you had to cowboy hat, boots, a nice dress shirt. You had to show up looking good, and you also had to be able to get up there and play. And if you couldn't, they would not let you up there.
Yeah.
And so, to be honest, man, yeah, you go down there looking the part, and you go down there knowing that when they asked you to get up, you let a rip tater chip, man, because that's all you got.
Yeah. Yeah.
And,
so you kind of came out of the gate like I'm here.
Yeah, I came out of the gate like a racehorse, man. Everything was 90 knots and no smoke, and but then again, my vigor and my love for Nashville was so strong that I think that really helped me, because a lot of those guys were like, man, this kid is just full of piss and vinegar. He's ready to really do this right. And he takes criticism well, and he does, after that, after he learns, he's good to go, and then you could call him for any gig.
So you were telling me this amazing story when we were talking on the phone about the trajectory from your arrival to actually playing that room. When you had said to mom and dad, hey, I'm going to Nashville because I want to play the Grand Ole Opry.
And that, like I said, that did not go over well. But I think what really changed my parents' mind was there was a big tornado that happened in Nashville in 1998. And I'll never forget that, because I literally called the drummer I was playing a club called the World Famous Turf. And it was a little tiny bar, dude, but we had so much fun in there, man. And everything was just bone country, brother. I mean, if you didn't know how to play, Webb Pierce and Farron Young and George Jones and Merle and Waylon and, some of, not the all just top 40 country stuff or the classics, but you had to know some like B-sides and stuff like that. And they would throw this stuff at you and you had to rip it. You had to play your butt off.
Wow.
But then when that tornado hit, I remember calling the drummer and I said, gosh, man, this big tornado, big F5 hit Nashville. I said, are we still on at 9:00 tonight? And he's like, dude, there's no club.
Oh,
the club got blown. And I got to admit, boys, that was the first night that I actually, because, playing the same club every day, I would, or start my gigs during the day at that club. So I left the amp there most of the time. So I didn't have to carry an amp down the hill, every day. And especially when it was a Fender Twin or a Music Man, it was like,
yeah, right.
I mean, I got Popeye arms. Wow. But I mean, it was, that was the night before that, though, was the first night I had literally brought my rig home. Oh. Thank God I did, man, because all of the other pickers down at that club lost all of their instruments.
Oh,
like an old 60s Slingerland drum kit and a steel guitar and a bass rig. Yeah, it was bad, man. So, but anyway, after the tornado hit and they cleaned Broadway up and got everything back to normal, I played a few gigs over at Legends Corner, which is still there today.
Yeah.
Then got the gig with Don Kelly at Robert's Western World. Now that gig, Don had the biggest line or lineage of guitar players, more so than anybody else in Nashville, really. I mean, he had Brent Mason, Troy Lancaster, Kenny Vaughn, Red Vocart, Rod Riley. I mean, all these amazing, amazing guitar players. And then he, and matter of fact, right before then, Red Vocart was playing. And when Red got the gig with Merle Haggard, Don said, well, man, I'd give you this gig if you'd take it. And I said, yeah, I'll take it. So playing with Don, I mean, up until playing with Don Kelly, I was playing 3 gigs a day, 7 days a week. So that was a lot of shows, man, and that was a lot of boot camp. But when I started playing with Don, it was literally 1 gig a day, 5 to 6 days a week. But that was the guitar gig of Broadway, man. Any guitar player that moved down there dreamed of having that gig.
Oh,
so
wow.
I played with Don for about 5.5 years. And but you were asking me about the Ryman. I got my first standing ovation in Nashville at the Ryman Auditorium, which is the Mother Church of Country Music where the Grand Ole Opry used to be.
Yeah.
Right.
And I had, some nights Vince Gill would come in and Rhonda Vincent would come in and Mike Snyder. A lot of the Opry stars would have the Opry at the Ryman, and then they would sneak over to Roberts, to have a drink in between shows or whatever. And they'd watch us play. And sometimes Jack Green would get up and do Statue of a Fool, or you just never knew who was going to walk in and jump on stage with you. And it was just amazing. But anyway, Gary Chapman walked in, who was doing a show on TNN called Primetime Country. And it was a huge, huge show. And Gary walked up to me and said, hey, boy, I'd love for you to do that show. I'd love for you to come on Primetime Country. And I said, well, gosh, man, doing what? He's like, that's all right, mama, man. You killed it. I did do this real fast version of That's All Right, Mama in Don's show. And Gary said, man, I said, well, Gary, I don't have a record deal, man. I'm just a guitar player. from Maine, man, that's just down here doing what I love to do. And he said, well, I'll tell you what, kid. So we got something to talk about. He said, you're not coming on the show till like Wednesday or Tuesday or Wednesday or whatever. He said, why don't you come play the Sam's Place show at the Ryman Auditorium on Sunday night? And I said, well, and I asked Don, I said, is it okay if I miss the first hour of the gig? I'm going to go play the Ryman with Gary Chapman. and it was just like, you know, and I said, man, you want me for a gospel show? And he's like, yeah, man. He said, but the Primetime Country Band will be there, and it's Michael W. Smith and Points of Grace. And man, first thing I did when I got there, man, was walk out on the stage, drop my pick, and went, oh, shit. And to be honest, man, I mean, but then again, when you're a blind kid, what else are you going to say? So you could walk out on stage and do the Tim Allen, you know, that's what I felt, you know. So anyway, the whole audience just starts screaming, laughing. I mean, it was hilarious. And I said, folks, I know this is a gospel show. I said, but I've been asked to come out here and do a little Elvis for you, and only guitar style. And I did That's All Right, Mama. And woo, the place just erupted.
Wow.
So I just, and then I didn't even see it. I start walking off, and Gary's like, boy, they're on their feet. But what an amazing story I had to talk about on you know, Primetime Country. Gary said, man, the Ryman man just exploded when you got done.
Wow.
So it was a great story to talk about on national television, you know. And then but what the funny part about it was, as I was telling Chris, Tony, I said, man, I had to do primetime like on Tuesday afternoon.
Mm-hmm.
And my mom and my cousin flew in to see that show. Now, my dad worked for Georgia Pacific Paper Mill. He couldn't make it in. But anyway, my mom and cousin came down, and then they went right back the next day. So on Wednesday, they flew home. Well, as I'm walking down to Don Kelly's gig, the security guard for the Ryman Auditorium comes up to me and says, you got a phone call. And I'm thinking, why would I have a phone call at the Ryman Auditorium? I don't understand that, man. That's like trippy. But come to find out, it was the secretary to the president of the Grand Ole Opry, and she said, Johnny, we were there when you got that standing O, and Steve Buchanan would like you to come play Friday night at the Opry if you would. Wow. And I'm going, okay, I'll play in the backup band, sitting in the back. And no, he's like, no, man, we want you to do That's All Right, Mama. We'll put you on, you know, you're a headliner. And I'm like,
so Johnny, how old were you then?
I was 23, 24, somewhere in there.
Man, that's wow. That's moving. That's moving fast. That is moving fast.
And this all happens in a week. So here I am, this kid, and you know, Chris was actually asking me too. He's like, well, gosh, man, what? You know, it was almost like this was, and I said, dude, it was by the hand of God. It all happened in a week. You know, and then literally, man, I called my mom and I'm like, Mom, I'm playing the Opry. And she is boo-hooing crying, man, because by that point, she can't change the flight. She's already going home. She's at the airport. And so they missed it. And but after that point, man, that's when my mom and dad finally said, okay, this is where he needs to be. He's following his dream. And now if he's headlined the Opry or played the Opry, that kid's doing good.
Yeah.
Right.
So and they realized it wasn't just honky tonk gigs and beer drinking and, you know, but I got to admit, man, Broadway was a dream come true for me. And I still love and respect every musician on this planet that gets to go down there and experience that.
Yeah.
Because you are, you know, barroom boot camping it every single day of your life.
I think I think it's a great phrase, barroom boot camp, the way you use that, because for the listeners and the watchers, Nashville is an interesting place in the sense that, you know, you'll, like you said, you do 2, 3, 4 shows a day.
Yeah, man.
And sometimes it's not in the same venue. You're moving around.
Oh, no, it's not. Most generally, it's not. You're switching clubs. So essentially, you go to the first gig, set up your rig, play 4 hours, tear down, walk to the next club, set up your stuff, play 4 hours, tear down. And, dude, these clubs want you playing 4 hours straight. No pee breaks, no nothing. Right.
Oh.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, half the time, man, you're tearing your amp down off the stage and putting the lid on your pedal board as you're going, God, I want to piss down my leg. You know? And man, God forbid if you get the shits or something, you're really in
trouble. Oh yeah.
I mean, just being honest, But
no. Sometimes you need to have.
Really, though, I mean, but then again, you got to understand the whole thing in your brain all day is, I don't want to miss anything. There could be a big producer walk through the door and offer me a session. I mean, man, I remember playing the Turf, that little club with Tim McGraw and Faith Hill sitting right in front of me.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, the boys from Skinnerd came in and were looking at me for their gig before. I can't think of his name right now. My names are terrible, man. I'm getting older. But anyway, it was. But yeah, the boys from Skinnerd came in and they were
Mick. Oh man, now the names just went out of my head. I know what you mean.
But anyway, they come in and a buddy of mine said, "Hey, dude, they were checking you out, Hoss." Because back then I had long hair, just hair down my back. Because in the '90s, man, Little Texas was big, and all those bands with the mullets and the But I always wore a cowboy hat, So, but I actually had a buddy say, "Yeah, Skinnerd was looking at you," and I was like, "Man, that's amazing," But I never got the gig. But I was still just even having a buddy come up and say that. I was like, man, that's far out, dude. Cool. So you just never knew. I think
there's something deeper to that too, because one of the things that I remember, and in a philosophy I still live by, is that the greatest thing about that time in Nashville is that the boot camp, there was an end game, like, okay, I get this gig, but it was also about the music. It was,
oh my God,
those gigs, and it was like, you're going to leave that gig a better musician than you were walking in. Like that was like, there was that undercurrent feeling of like,
the reason though was because no bands on Broadway rehearsed.
Right.
You jump on stage, you get to the gig and you set up your rig, and you're looking at 4 to 5 other guys that you've never seen in your lifetime.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And you got to play a show with them.
Yeah.
And now granted that isn't obviously always true. There was always somebody that you knew, that's why you get the call for the gig. Right.
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 But then again, you would obviously play with some pickers you did not know.
Mm-hmm.
And you're right. It always made you better because there might be someone you don't even know if, that, say, like for an example, if another big artist came in and they wanted to play my guitar, well, that gave me a break. So, and like Keith Gaddis would get up and play and stuff. And so I'd be thanking God because I could go pee, But then again, another, he might have brought his bass player in, and the bass player would see me off the side of the stage and go, "Hey, bud, you might want to turn down. You're kind of making the club owner mad," or, "Hey, you might want to try this or do this," and they'd always give you help.
Mm-hmm.
Man, you should try this, or hey, tomorrow night, man, let's all wear untucked shirts with a t-shirt underneath, and don't wear the big cowboy hat, just wear a ball cap, dude, or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we'd all go for certain looks at certain gigs, and but it was just everything they told you, man, you kind of took to heart because you wanted to please everybody you worked for.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So it was even if it was a tonal criticism or a "hey, you're too loud," or which I got all the daggum time, man. All right. Guitar, it's always the guitar player's fault. I'll just say that up front.
Of course.
It's always the guitar player's fault, man.
Right. Why wouldn't it be?
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, so Johnny, how many people? All right, let me rephrase this. Is it being in Nashville? Is it like? Does it weed out the weakest? And how many people did you actually see come in and just say, "This is not for me. I got to go home. This is just too much"?
Man, I was actually one of them. I actually
really?
Remember, yeah.
Wow.
I stayed down there about a year, and I was like, man, I'm just playing honky tonks. This ain't getting me anywhere. I'm just, because after a while, you're doing it every single day. Bam, bam, bam. Gig, and you finally go, I'm give out, man. I am flat. Right. I ain't had a vacation in a year. Now, most people would say, well, man, dude, you get to play guitar in Nashville. That is a dream. Or that is a vacation. No, it's living a dream, but you're working your tail off, man.
Right.
So after a while, man, I had this guilty conscience of maybe my dad was right. Maybe I should have finished my degree and then come back and blah, blah, blah. But I remember sitting at the bar at Roberts after playing all day long, and I was telling one of the bartenders there, I said, I think I'm going to head back to Maine and you know, if I play in a local band, because you know the other thing, man, you don't get paid squat to play down there.
Right.
You play a 4-hour gig, you get $20 plus tips.
Yep.
So man, there was days, man, I'd play 4 gigs in a row and go home with $120 after 16 hours of playing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you know, so you're going, God have mercy, man. I mean, it was, you know, but I sat at that bar at Roberts that night, and believe it or not, Hank Williams III was sitting at the end of the bar. And because, you know, he'd come in and watch us all play too when he was home off the road. And I kept hearing this voice, no, you're not going nowhere.
That's awesome.
And I was just sitting there like, oh, man, I don't know. I'm done. I'm just stick a fork in me, man. I'm you know, I'm tired, I'm wore out. I can't even take a vacation because none of the bands want me to leave. Because all right, I'm back.
Yeah, Ryan.
I'm back. Thank God for Kimmy again. She did it again.
Thank you, Kimmy.
But God, I don't know what I'd do without my wife, man. She takes.
You are awesome.
She is awesome, man. I love her to death.
That's awesome.
So where were we, boys? What were we talking about?
Okay, so
you were about to leave Nashville, and the third said, "No, you're not going nowhere, boy."
Yeah, and then it was funny because he kind of motioned for me to go down to the end of the bar with him, and he said, Johnny Hiland, he said, do you know what kind of a name you've created for yourself in a year's time down here?
Wow.
And I said, amazing. And he goes, and then I don't even know who this guy is. So long story short, he says, after a while we got to talking, and I said, man, I don't feel like I've accomplished anything. And he said, how do you say that? He's like, dude, you know how many people have come down to Nashville and watched you play in this last year? He's like, man, dude. And he's like, man, you've already created something that it takes people a long time to do. Why would you give that up?
Wow.
And so he's like, no, dude, you're not going anywhere. And I'm looking at this guy in a cowboy hat and a, you know, old plaid shirt, you know, and some ripped out jeans with big, you know, with snakeskin boots on that were all ripped up with a duct tape around them, you know, and I'm going, but then again, he's like, and then of course, the bartender comes over and said, you ought to listen to him, Johnny. That's Hank Williams Jr.'s son.
Oh my God.
And so we hit it off, and and you know, so he's like, well, man, he's like, you know, I just signed to Curb, man. I'll use you on my records. And I said, fantastic, dude. So I get my energy all pumped back up, keep my gigs. Next thing I know, the first Hank 3 record comes out, and I'm not on it.
Oh.
So he comes in, and man, I gave him a look, man, if looks could kill, you know. And he walked up to me, and he was like, man, I'm sorry, dude. He's like, you know, the label has say over everything on the first record, man. You know how that goes. Well, I didn't know how that goes, so I kind of took offense to it. But do you know, man, that man has used me on, there's probably 10 or 11 Hank 3 records out, 3 of which are rock, and all 8 of the other records he's used me on. I've played guitar on all of them since then. So Hank 3 held up to his end of the bargain. He's been one of the most dear people to me, because there were 3 people that kept me in Nashville at that time. It was Gail, the bartender at Roberts, Hank 3, and Ronnie Lutrick. And my buddy Ronnie Lutrick played bass in Don's band, and of course we went on to do other things together. Just a phenomenal bass player, phenomenal blues singer, country singer. Well, he can sing anything. I mean, you could listen to Ronnie Lutrick sing the phone book, man, and he'd kill it, you know. But anyway, he's been one of my dearest brothers, but all 3 of those people have been dear friends all these years, and watched what my career has done, and always, you know, supported me. So, and then of course I met my lovely wife in 2005, and you know, we've been married 18 years, and I just adore her. And I met her playing Don Kelly's gig at Roberts.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
congratulations! Happy anniversary! That's awesome.
Well, April 2nd, man, it'll be 18 years.
Wow, that is great.
So would you say that those 3 individuals were like the bass part, the basic part of the machine that helped Johnny get to where you're at?
Well, they I guess I'll just put
or is it just a family?
They gave me a massive shot of B12 in the heart. You know, it was like I had lost a lot of heart from thinking, hey, man, maybe my parents are right. They think I'm going to be some deadbeat musician and, living off people when I'm 50, and now here I am. I just turned 48.
Yeah.
And, the funny thing is, though, you always, it's not hard to get scared of life.
Oh, for sure.
No matter what you do. It doesn't matter if you're a guitar player or but see, at that point, after a year of being in Nashville, I still was undecided as to what I was really pursuing. What am I following? What am I chasing after? And, by that, third year in town, then the Gary Chapman stuff happened and the Ryman and the Primetime Country and the Opry. So it was like my artistry fell in my lap. Because I really wanted to be a session guy and a teacher. But as I was telling Chris the other night, I wanted to delve into virtually anything guitar related I could get my hands on. But so, that could have been a number of different things. But I just really didn't know what I really truly wanted. And then next thing I know, when I'm playing the Opry, I'm like, well, I guess I need to start singing again. And the next thing I know, I met my first manager, Mac Wilson, and I was the very first unsigned Level A artist endorser in Fender's history.
Wow.
Without a record out, and which obviously my Johnny model never got released, but that's another whole story. But then after that, I was signing a record deal with Steve Vai in 2003, and of course my record came out in 2004, and so it was amazing because I'm thinking, gosh, man, why would Steve Vai sign this, chubby guy from Maine that plays country? Why would Steve Vai have any interest, and it was, so I'm interested. Mind blowing, man. It was literally a gift from God is what it was. Cause it sure as fire just wasn't from me just doing what I do. There had to be people making these connections happen. And I just believe everything in a line just worked out, man.
But I think there was also something else too, in the sense that, stylistically, you were doing the Nashville thing, killing it.
Yeah, trying. Yeah,
there were these other things that you were doing on the instrument, like getting to the Vai thing, that where obviously he heard something in that. It was like, okay, this isn't just this. There's other things going on here.
Yeah.
And how did that actually happen? How did the Vi thing actually come to pass? How did he hear you?
What's crazy about that whole story, man, is in 2002, 2001 or 2, somewhere in there, Joe Glazier, who is the guy in Nashville everybody takes their guitars to be worked on, set up and worked on. Of course, one of the inventors of the newer style B-benders. And but Joe called me one day and he said, man, have you heard of a guy named Louis Shelton? And I said, no. And he said, well, dude, guitar player who played on Last Train to Clarksville, big session guitar player. He's doing a record called Nashville Guitars. And dude, I think you're a candidate for that, man. You got some instrumentals, don't you? And I'm going, yeah, sure. And of course, inside I had little bits and pieces, but I'd never really written a full instrumental. So I talked to Louis through Joe Glazier, and Louis's like, yeah, man, I'd love to have you, man. And I'm like, so I start in my head thinking, oh my gosh, what am I going to write? And all of a sudden, I had started writing a Western swing tune, and my first manager, Matt, came over, and we were picking. The morning of the session, I changed my mind.
I love this.
So I wrote this new little thing, and I called it the Cudge Boogie. Now, Cudge Waycott was like my second grandfather. He was the guy back in Maine that played at Martin and did all Ray Price shuffles and, old country music. And I loved, his name was Mel Waycott, but we all called him Cudge.
Okay.
So I called that song the Cudge Boogie. So I had written my first official recorded instrumental. So after playing the Opry and being a part of Nashville Guitars, the first Johnny Hiland band was kind of formed from my first manager wanting me to have some really killer Nashville cats behind me. And he wanted me to just kind of, start doing Johnny tunes and That's All Right Mama and Blue Suede Shoes and, Working Man Blues, and then adding some instrumentals as I wrote them or just coming up with ideas. We just met at a local studio that was owned by Chip Woody, a guy that Mac knew. And next thing I know, I'm in there with the first Johnny Hiland band, and we just start jamming. Well, how the Vi thing happened is we're in the studio jamming, and I see my manager's holding up his cell phone, and I'm going, who is he got on the phone listening to us just in here jamming? And it was Vi.
Wow.
So the next thing I know, Matt takes me out on the porch and he goes, "Hey boy, I had Steve Vai listening to you, man, and he wants to talk to you." And I'm like, "Steve Vai wants to talk to me? Okay, yeah." And I'm a freaking jet pilot, you know. And I'm thinking, why would Steve Vai want to talk to me, you know? But man, he was one of the most gracious people I had ever met in my life, even over the telephone at first. And he said, "Look, boy, we're coming into town." He said, "I want you to start writing some instrumentals and send me some stuff." So he gave me his email address, and I just started firing every idea I had. I went in the studio and played drums and bass and keyboards and whatever I had to play because I play all those instruments. So Chip would let me come in and just be creative and start crafting songs, and I'd get them finished and send them to Vi. And he was really pushing me to create melodies that people could hum in their head or that they'd stick with you. You know, you couldn't get that song out of your mind, out of your head. And so he was really, really great about helping me craft melody ideas and coming up with hook lines and stuff like that. But then he calls up and says, "Hey, man, the G3 tour is going to be in Nashville, man. You need to come out, man. Come out and hang out. Maybe we'll get you up to play." Wow. And I'm thinking, yeah, okay, sure. And then guess where the G3 tour played? The Ryman.
Yeah.
So
that's awesome.
I go back to the Mother Church of Country Music, and I get to meet Satriani, Vi, and Yngwie. Yngwie Malmsteen was on the gig.
Yngwie J. Malmsteen.
Yeah, the maestro. Yeah, and so, but anyway, man, you know, I had loved Yngwie and Satch and Vi, and the funny thing is, man, I'd get home from playing all these Broadway gigs, and I'd turn on The Extremist or Flying in a Blue Dream or Alien Love Secrets is my favorite Vi album. I love.
Yeah, it's a great record.
And so, next thing I know, they haul me out on stage, man, during the end jam of Rockin' in the Free World, and they bring Neil Sean out too.
Oh wow!
So I'm like, holy shit, man, this is just mind blowing. Well, my gosh. So in the middle of that jam, man, being at the Ryman, I pulled the Mama Tried lick in the middle of Rockin' in the Free World. And the whole Ryman exploded again, so it was awesome. And, but it was because of that gig, though, that Billy Sheehan walked up to Vi and said, "I want to play on this kid's record, man. You know, I really do. I want to play on this kid's record."
Wow.
And so I started becoming, and of course I told Billy when they called and said, "Billy, you know, choose the drummer you want." And I said, no. I want Billy to be comfortable. You know, bass player and drummer need to be like this, you know? So yeah. So Billy calls Pat Torpy from Mr. Big, man. And then,
wow.
So I get to fly out to Vi's studio, the Mothership, and record my first album with Billy Sheehan, Pat Torpy, and then Mac, my first manager, brings in Bill Holloman, who was the lead saxophone player and keyboardist for Danny Gatton.
Yes.
So Danny Gatton's my biggest guitar hero. So to play with Bill, and then of course Billy Sheehan and Pat, I was just mesmerized. But then to top it all off, Vi said, "I will be the executive producer," but Mac introduced me to Peter Collins. Now Peter Collins produced Rush, you know, Metallica, a bunch of people. And he goes, "Yeah, man, he's a British fella, he is." He said, "Yeah, he said, I'd like to work with Johnny. Yeah, I think I could help him." And so we did a lot of pre-production on the record and stuff. And when we got out there, man, it was just the most amazing experience. Unbelievable, man. And, my first record came out, it's just self-titled, and come out in 2004. But then after that full-on experience, man, with all those icons, Favored Nation started going digital, and Vi said, "Look, man, you're free to do what you want to do." So I teamed up with Jim Lightman in Nashville, who was a amazing producer. He worked on Leanne Womack's If You Dance, a couple other things. And actually, just this past year, we lost Jim. He, I don't know if COVID had much to do. I'm not really sure what he passed from, but we just lost him. Okay. And but Chicken and Cheese was written for Jim because every time he and I would go to eat, he ate chicken and cheese. There was nothing. It was nothing else, man. It's like all the guy lived on.
No way.
You can't have chicken, man, without cheese on it, dude. You know, gotta have cheese on your chicken, man.
So now this riff has meaning here.
Yes.
So good.
Yeah.
I don't want to
it.
get a copyright strike, so I want to be careful.
It's all good though. But no, but to be honest with you, I really went into that album, and with Jim. Now, granted, I wrote most all the tunes, and my buddy Keith Driver wrote a song on there called "I Never," and we changed it up a little bit to suit me and stuff. And of course, I did a couple of covers. I did "Honky Tonk Nighttime Man," and then, but my favorite tune on that record at the end was "Chicken Pickin' Heroes."
Yes,
which I had Ricky Skaggs, Vince Gill, and Steve Wariner play on. And of course, my three of my biggest heroes, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And
so when you were doing this track, because I was listening to that earlier today, when you were doing that track, were you all together?
Nope. No, sir.
Okay. All right.
No, I tracked it with my band in the studio.
Okay.
And then we sent the track to Ricky Skaggs for him to do in his studio. And mind-blowingly enough, Ricky called my house on the phone. First time I'd ever really talked to Ricky, like, you know, big time. And he goes, now, funny thing is, I had played on Ricky's album called Brand New Strings in 2004 as well, which won a Grammy. And so to be able to go into the studio and play on my Absolute Country Heroes album, which was freaky enough that he moved to bluegrass music after Bill Monroe passed. So it was like I had always dreamed of playing in Ricky Skaggs' band, but I had no idea he was going to leave the country thing and go back to bluegrass full time.
Okay.
But he still brought me in to play on a record, man, that won a Grammy. And you know, the funny thing is, Brand New Strings actually is Johnny's Got Some Brand New Strings. But I love Ricky Skaggs so much. I mean, he is just such an icon and such a hero to me, and he has been so kind. But so after playing on that title track of that album, then I asked Ricky to do Chicken Pickin' Heroes, and he called me on the phone, and I remember I was hanging up clothes after folding laundry or whatever. My cell phone rang, and I pick it up, and it was Ricky. He's like, hey, Johnny, it's Ricky here. And I'm going, yeah, okay. And he's like, look, man, where I've played bluegrass for, you know, quite a while now, brother, I don't really think I'm going to play electric. Would you mind if I played acoustic? And I was just like, oh man, come on, dude, you know. But how are you going to look at your hero even through a telephone and go, no, you got to play? No, I was like, dude. I basically was like, Ricky, I don't care if you fart your part, dude. You know, I mean, but honestly, guys, is knowing Ricky all these years now, it took a long time. Ricky is such a humble man that it took a long time for him to understand how much of a hero he really was to me and how much he is to me. I actually literally had to take him proof. I have pictures of me in a Ricky Skaggs shirt and a Ricky Skaggs country boy hat in 1985.
Wow.
When I was 10 years old, standing next to my little Suzuki JR50, you know. And so I had to like show Ricky pictures like, dude, I'm not lying to you. You've been a hero to me a long time.
Wow.
And, you know, but this was in the last couple of years that Ricky finally started realizing, oh my goodness, man, this kid really is not joking. This is, you know, so, but, you know, I literally was like, Ricky, no, bud, you play whatever you want to play. It's fine. I'm just honored to have you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And Steve Wariner did his at his studio as well, but Vince Gill did come in the studio with me. And man, he used my pedal board on the track, and you know, but he brought in his trunk amp, his little Fender Deluxe, with his 53 top loader Telecaster, and just burned it down, man. I mean, it was killer. Yeah. So yeah, I had a ball with all three of those guys, and they're just amazing heroes for me. And even though I didn't get to watch Steve Wariner play, he invited me to his house after it was done, and of course we listened down to it, and it was just amazing having those guys do that with me. So truly awesome.
after the Vi thing, you went with Shrapnel.
I did. Well, actually, no, because that Loud and Proud album was released independently in between there.
Oh, between them. Okay.
So the Vi album came out in 2004. Loud and Proud come out at the end of 2006, early 2007.
Gotcha.
And then Shrapnel came in 2011.
Okay.
Now, from that point, I had left Fender, went to PRS, and then in 2011, at that right in between 10 and 11, my days with PRS ended, and I went to Music Man because of Albert, and Albert Lee being a big hero of me. I always, every time I got to hang with Albert, it was always Music Man, and so I went to them. But then next thing I know, my buddy Jason Macedo, who was actually doing a magazine called The Sound, and I was working with him on that magazine project back then. He happened to know Mike Varney, and he called Varney one day and said, "Man, how'd you like to get Johnny on the label, man?" And Mike's like, "Yeah, Shrapnel's really not known for country guys." But then Jason played him some stuff, and the next thing I know, Varney was ringing my phone, man. And but see, at that time, what was killer though is I had already written a lot of songs for the new record. So I talked to Mike Varney, and we sealed the deal in December. And by the mid-January, I was in Cotati, California, at Prairie Sun Studios, where Yngwie recorded the Steeler album and all that. And it was like, man, I instantly became a Shrapnel boy. And Mike Varney really gave me a lot of artistic freedom to be expressive in my own way. But here again, went from my own road band playing on Loud and Proud to now having Stu Hamm and Jeremy Colson in the studio with me.
Jeez.
And then they called Jesse Bradman in from Boston to play keys. And so I was just, awestruck because I love these people. They're so, from a kid in Maine, man, these dudes are like, just incredible, icons. Or Jeremy Colson is one bad dude, man, on that.
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to tell you. So I was just mesmerized. Now, granted, before the Shrapnel thing too, after, when Mac and I broke it off in 2005 or 6, somewhere in there, I was also out doing stuff with Sammy Hagar and George Clinton and P-Funk and then I'd fly home and play on a Toby Keith record or a Trick Pony record or a Randy Travis record. So I was literally living in both worlds, if you will. Like sometimes rock, sometimes funk, and sometimes country.
Wow.
And so for this young guitar player from Maine to live all these dreams at one time was like, it was a little overwhelming. It was like, my gosh, how is this happening to me?
Were you even 30 yet?
No.
Oh my God.
Well, in 2005, I turned 30. So yes, I was right out there. Yeah.
Wow, that's still very young in a guitar player's career.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Very awesome, Johnny.
Well, one of the fascinating things I find is, and we spoke about this on the phone, is how organically seamless you go between these styles. So my question is, as you were growing up, you were listening to everything. Obviously you get to Nashville and you have a command over this traditional country style. You have developed this ability to play these, in that idiom very well, but yet you had this awesome control over all of these other styles. So at what point in your life, in your development, were you, you went out with P-Funk, you were doing all of these things, but was that music coming to you at an early age? That all these styles.
Not really, man. I think, Chris, honestly, bud, I was so engulfed in Nashville in the Broadway days of, going and playing a gig and 2 or 3 gigs a day, sometimes 4. And if I finished early, I would always run to Ernest Tubb Record Shop and buy either a Fair and Young record, a Web Period. If there was a song I didn't know, I'd go instantly buy that record, the CD, and learn it. And try to cop all the guitar licks. But at the same time, Ernest Tubb Record Shop also, they were so specialized in the like, man, I bought a box set of Jimmy Bryant and Speedy West from 1951 on.
Oh my
you know.
God.
But then I would go down to West End, Nashville to Tower Records and buy all the latest Satriani, Vai, Yngwie, Vinnie Moore, Frank Gambale, Alan Holsworth, whatever I could get. Robin Ford, man, I loved Robin Ford, but I still love Robin. He's amazing. But Larry Carlton, anything with guitar, anything guitar oriented, I bought, man. Al Di Meola records, Les Paul and Mary Ford. I mean, man, I was so guitarded and still am guitarded. So,
I love that phrase.
All the guys on Broadway laughed, man. They're like, it's no wonder Hiland can't pay his doggone bills, man. He spends too much money in records.
Yeah, the $120 you made for 16 hours, you bought the records.
And Johnny's running down the Broadway going, I got the new Jimmy Bryant, man. I was just so excited, you know, because I got this box set, you know. But, I mean, truthfully, though, man, I have always been so blessed in the respect that managers I've had along the way, and obviously Mac Wilson being the first, who really paved the way for me to look at artistry in a different light. I mean, he taught me so much. And you know, I think he was seeing this massive love for old country, like for classic traditional country. But yet there was something still inside me missing. So I think he saw me loving traditional country and would never knock it, man. I mean, that's what I'm playing in Virginia right now.
Okay.
Yeah, man, I'm playing with brother Zach Burnett, man, who was boy, I'm telling you, he's country as a possum fart, brother. I'm telling you. But anyway, or as my buddy Rick Bowen would say, he's as country as an old shoe. But anyway, I mean, but then again, I think really what was happening is as I was playing all these gigs on Lower Broadway, there was still something inside of me that was going, wow, man, what if I did kick on a tube screamer with a compressor with a T-style on or a PRS Johnny model or a Music Man or what? I wonder if I can really create this sound that sounds similar to a blend between Larry Carlton and Van Halen or Robin Ford and you know, Vinnie Moore or whatever, you know.
Yeah.
So I was experimenting with pedals, and I started going to NAMM shows and meeting pedal companies and trying new things and being blessed with companies sending me stuff to try. And so I instantly became a pedal junkie. Yeah, I really became a pedal junkie. But then again, it wasn't so much that these companies were being kind to me and sending them. It was, oh man, what new amazing fun sound can I get? You know, it was like, so I actually became a massive octave fuzz nut. I love octave fuzz, man. And wah pedals. I love wah pedals. And so to me, it was like really funny to go on a gig on Broadway. And if someone played a Tim McGraw tune or one of the modern style 90s country songs or whatever, and I was doing this, or we'd play a boogie tune or something like an old Jerry Lee tune or Elvis tune, and I'd be playing rockabilly style with some delay on and then throw a wah pedal in because I heard Danny do it with a tone knob on his telly.
Yeah.
Wop, 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 that kind of
thing. Right.
And then of course I had a lot of looks on Broadway of what the heck's he got a wah pedal on a country gig for, you know? And if I used it in one song for some weird thing, it was fun. And it created this new energized, you know, Johnny, because it was like, wow, I'm getting this neat sound that nobody else gets. And so that really spawned a lot of, I must say, pedals really helped me stay inspired, you know, and to really kind of create new sounds. And then you hear a sound that moves you, and the next thing you know, you have a song out of it.
Right.
So that's part of your process in your writing.
That's part of the process, yes. And right now, I got to admit, the folks from Source Audio I've just recently started doing some, you know, I mean, I've been doing pedal demo videos for a long time, but just this past, you know, 2 or 3 months, I started doing some for Source Audio. Good gracious, man. The Kingmaker Fuzz, I wrote a tune already. I mean, it's like going on my next record. I'm just so stoked about it, though. But yet, in my heart, I'm still going, well, I ain't Merle Haggard. You know, but it's okay. It's right. I'm guitarded. I can't help it. I'm guitarded.
But it's interesting because, you know, listening through the records, even when I'm listening to Loud and Proud, and I'm listening to, these the Barn Burners. Then you got this, really cool rock instrumental, and then there's like a song where you're singing.
Yep.
It's like it's a hook, and all this stuff. Have you ever dealt with this idea of like you do this because that's your artistry?
Sure.
But have you ever dealt with the industry saying to you, "Hey, like what?
I
is
know where you're going, Chris. I will admit, man. I mean, even Steve Vai himself, God love his heart. I mean, he's an icon, and he really was, like I said, trying to push me down a commercial lane where he was concerned guitar playing needs to be heard on radio more, and I love that about Vai. And really, at 48 years old right now, and looking back at my deal with Vai, I understand where he was coming from.
Mm-hmm.
Because he would say to me, son, pick a lane and drive, man. Pick a lane and drive. You're known as a chicken picker, so do that. But see, at that stage, I was doing Broadway, and I was a session guitar player playing on Toby Keith records. And I guess at that stage, I was also feeling a shift, even in country music, because Garth Brooks was big and, crashing Takamines on stage and swinging on Tarzan ropes. Country music was changing, It wasn't about, like guys like Ricky Skaggs and Alan Jackson, stand up there and blow your mind musically. They didn't have to do that stuff. And I'm not saying that Garth doesn't blow your mind musically, but yet he made it like a rock show.
Yes.
And so exactly. I saw this transition happening. And I think what was crazy for me is I instantly, when you find out you're writing material to send to Steve Vai, you're not going to send him, yeehaw, boy. You're not going to do that. You're going to send him something that's got a little,
Yeah.
But then again, man, it was like you said, Chris, the bending that I do, and it was but he also inspired me to be creative and to write things that didn't quite sound like typical Nashville. And the first song I ever wrote, really, where Vai went, yes, there it is, was Until We Meet Again. And the second song that he really loved was Truth Hurts, which was a ballad.
Yeah.
But he said, man, these things stick in your head and they don't leave you, man. He's like, that's what you need to do, dude. But then again, he was really pushing that, hey, bud, pick a lane and drive. Now, looking back at my career now, which obviously ain't over, I'm still creating records and doing my thing. But I have really felt proud of myself in the respect that I've held true to myself. I mean, I hate to say it, as a songwriter, man, I write what comes. I'm not writing, because, I mean, let's face it, dude. Everything in country music that means something, that grabs onto you, has already been said 100 million times. From Mama Tried to Working Man Blues to Folsom Prison Blues to Ricky Skaggs, Steve Wariner, Vince Gill, Brad Paisley. I mean, the list goes on and on. I mean, so to me, it was like, how am I going to write Vai a record? And then my hero being Danny Gatton, I'm like, how am I going to out-country Albert Lee and Danny Gatton? So to me, I would almost rather Vai laugh at me by me trying to play rock as a country guy than for me to just try to, compete against the heroes that I knew there was no way in God's earth I could do that.
Mm-hmm. So, I find that really fascinating, because one of the things that I think some artists struggle with on a level, and I'm going to venture to say that, I mean, to have the ability that you have, not just as an instrumentalist, and not just as an instrumentalist with an insane array of styles that you can play very well, but also being a songwriter. So is there ever has there ever been like this kind of conversation with yourself where you're like, you know what, I'm going to go write some hits. Like, I'm using that term loosely, but I
Sure.
can write a song because I can get behind a microphone. I can sing the melody. I can kill this, and I can produce it. I can produce these songs,
Mm-hmm.
and I find it really interesting. And I know I'm kind of going on about this, but I find it
Well,
interesting.
I think honestly, Chris, let's say this, man. When I was realizing I was sending songs to Steve Vai, it made me write a certain way. And now,
Okay.
here's what the blessing was behind it all, though. For me, in my mind, as a fan of Steve Vai and loving Alien Love Secrets,
Mm-hmm.
my favorite song off that record being Juice, right?
Yeah.
I took Juice. I took One Big Rush from Satriani on Flying in a Blue Dream, which is one of my favorite Satch tunes. And then mixing that with a little boogie from Danny Gatton, because Danny really had a lot of good boogie tunes he played in his show, that were kind of rockabilly, almost bebop jazzy, but yet Western swings too.
Yeah.
And so I was like, man, if I can learn how to write a song like Satch and Vai, in that there is the intro, there is the first verse melody, there's a little bridge or a chorus turnaround kind of thing. They bring you back to the head again. Then the big solo has a key change. Then it comes back. So I used Satriani and Vai and guys like that. And of course, vocal songs from being a songwriter in Nashville too, writing vocal tunes. I thought, man, I want to try to craft songs that, even if Steve got a chuckle and sent something to Joe saying, hey, man, look, this kid's trying to copy us, I thought, man, if anything else, and it gave Steve a laugh, great,
Okay.
But then again, that was the fanboy thing in me. But I was also saying, well, why not go to the best to learn how to do this, how to craft a proper instrument? Mm-hmm. So even though I had Vai's ear and attention, which God knows, I mean, what an amazing blessing that was.
Yeah.
But it was like, okay, I have to be serious. I have to take this serious because, he's going to put a record out on me and I want it to be killer. I want everything I send him. I want Vai to go, yeah.
Right.
But as well as I do, that didn't happen. He still had to help me along and teach me and coach me. And, and really, sometimes it was just, hey, bud, you're doing great. Don't get frustrated. It's all good. And so he was such a mentor, not to necessarily tell me how to craft the song, but he would say, gosh, man, you got this amazing melody, dude, and then you solo for like 32 bars. You don't need that much. Scale that part back a little bit and then try to bring it back to the 5 to come back into the head again.
Right.
Oh, and then I instantly knew he's right. There you go.
Okay. Yeah.
So I took every piece of advice Vai ever gave me, with the exception of Pick a Lane and Drive. Now, as I told you, Chris, I got to admit though, bud, I understand from the perspective of, okay, man, I probably would have had more success had I done that, but I also feel like I wouldn't have really been true to myself if I had done that. Mm-hmm. Because I would have been on stage playing one style of music every single night all my career, going, dang, man, I wish I could throw a blues tune in I feel like I would be lacking something in here. I think, think it's all kinds of different things, man. It's like, where do I grab inspiration? And like, for an example, like I told you, the Kingmaker Fuzz from Source Audio, man, I heard that pedal the first time and instantly I was like, there's a sound I haven't had in a long time. But now, because of DSP and the new technology, it was like mixing it with my other pedals gave me this really unique thing. But yeah, man, it could be a number of different things, though. I mean, a pedal can actually inspire me. Or even today, man, I was sitting down getting ready to teach this afternoon, and I just started warming up, just getting ready for my lesson, my round of lessons. And next thing I know, something just popped out in me, and I went, oh. And so on my phone, I have a little My Recorder thing, and I put down this lick. And so tomorrow I'll develop it and write it and see where it goes. But I've got a lot of those on my phone, man. But sometimes they either turn into a great song or they just don't get there. Or they're still in the works, Mm-hmm. So it could be a line. It could be a pedal that inspires me. It could be teaching a student something and go, oh man, I got to remember that. I made a mistake, but it led into something great,
Right.
And
Yeah.
it can be a number of things that bring a song forth, man. And I think that's what's beautiful about music.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And you never know where it's going to go. I've written songs, man, that I've had it nailed down, had it charted, went down to the studio, and it turned into a whole different thing, man. I mean, they take on a life of their own sometimes,
Yeah, we were talking about that the other day. Like, do you know when to get out of the way of a tune, like in a situation where you're composing a piece and you're like, oh, I really want it to go this way, but the song doesn't want to go that way?
I have gotten better at that over the years, but I would say as a 48-year-old, I can now say, yeah, I'm okay with going, all right, man, you're dictating it to me. I'm not dictating you,
Right. Yeah.
Even though it's my creativity and, but I do have to admit, man, when you've written as many instrumentals as I have, and Chris, I know you feel the same, brother, after you've written a great amount of material, then you catch yourself going, well, gee, that sounds too much like, or that sounds too much like this, or something I've already written. So it really gets harder and harder as you go, because you start going, I don't know, man, I use that chord progression a little too much in solo.
Look, if I get another email going, hey, we know Mixolydian now, you can leave it alone. Leave Mixolydian alone. There are other modes, my friend.
Well, but Chris, I got to admit, brother, I am a huge fan of yours too. I told you the other night, I watch pretty much every time you come on Facebook, man, and it's.
Oh, I appreciate that, man.
And I mean, goodness, man, I still wish. I mean, back in the day, man, in my teen years, I loved trying to play like you, and sax and But I realized, I think you have to really reach deep in your heart and go, what is it that makes me tick? And to me, it was that Ricky Skaggs, Danny Gatton, Albert Lee, and then Merle Haggard, Waylon Jennings, Farron Young. And there was so much I loved about country music that literally kept me happy. Because I found like if I really got into, but then again, as a legally blind guy too, guys, I was an emotional guitar player. Well, anyway, guys, so I was saying I'm an emotional player. So if I'm at home and I'm writing, I actually, if I'm really happy, you'll hear me play some Chet stuff. And then if I'm mad, then yeah, I'll pick on some real heavy dirt and play some, some Metallica or whatever. So it's really based on how I'm feeling as to how I would actually write or what style I would write or what have you. So that's kind of. My emotions really dictate a lot with me and how I'm feeling and what I'm writing and what I want to say. And, am I ready to rip your head off or am I ready to give you a hug,
So I have a couple of topics I want to get into too about that. Going back, I want to go back to when you were a kid coming up.
Okay. Sure.
One of the things that fascinates me about you and your ability to attach yourself to an instrument and really learn it. Was there always something? So, okay, I'm going to kind of paint a scenario. You go up to this guitar. Was there an innate sense about how it operated, or was it you had an internal voice and you could just start to, oh, I can hit this note. Oh no, that's not the note. Wait a minute, that's the note. I got it. Or is it just that? Do you have perfect pitch?
I don't believe so. I got to admit, man, my dad would, when he found I loved that old Gibson, then he would tune it to an open E chord. And Dad was not a guitar player; he was a drummer in the '60s. So he would tune the guitar to an open E chord, and then I learned how to walk the bass line with my thumb. And then I found out, 5 frets up is my 4 chord, 7 frets up is my 5. And so I would walk the bass line with my thumb, and then use my thumb to fully bar over for a 4-chord or a 5-chord. And,
like the Richie Havens technique, right?
Kinda, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. And so
okay, but you were already hearing, you're hearing that harmony at a very young age.
Yeah, I was starting to pick up commercials on television first and stuff like that. And my dad and mom were blown away because nobody, I didn't have anyone teaching me that stuff. I was just gravitating toward it. And I guess as a kid, man, like 2 or 3 years old, I had a toy guitar. And I guess when mom popped in Bee Gees records, I'd jump around the living room and, I just loved guitar. But I also loved really killer drum beats. So I loved playing drums as a kid too. But growing up in a trailer home in Woodland, Maine, man, we didn't have enough room for a kid. So that's when the guitar kind of became the,
I was going to ask that why the guitar, because you play all these instruments and you play them all like extremely well.
Well, thanks, brother.
The guitar, that was the one that you were like, Yeah.
Well, I'll just say this. That was the one that was first there. It was in the house.
Okay.
But it was like, okay, I don't have anything else. I could beat on pots and pans for drums, but I actually see this guitar in my dad's corner by his gun cabinet, and I want to play that thing.
So it could have been it could have been an alto saxophone.
Sure.
And you could be the next Coltrane.
I don't know, man. I play sax. I love playing sax, but I don't know, man. It was it was there. So literally, I think that's what just really drew me. And it really became like, I became like Linus with his security blanket, man. I just dragged that old guitar everywhere.
Really?
And I have pictures of me, man, as a kid when the guitar was so much bigger than me and taller than me. And, and people would make fun of that. They'd be like, man, this kid could barely hold this guitar at all.
But then they'd hear you play and they'd be like, hey, can I carry that for you?
Yeah, I mean, it was, but it really was, but I remember being 7 years old doing Dick Stacy's Jamboree in Bangor, Maine, which was a TV show. Mm-hmm. And a fellow walking up going, hey, kid, you want to sell that old Gibson? And I'm going, what? No, you ain't having my grandfather's guitar? No.
Wow. Do you still have it?
Yeah, man. Oh, yeah.
Oh, how awesome. Have you recorded with it?
Oh, God, I've done bunches of recordings with it, yeah. No way. Yep. I have a 68 D35 Martin, and I've got that 35 or that 39 J35 Jumbo. So, yep, those are my two main acoustics, man. And got a few Taylors and some Godins kicking around that I use plugged in and stuff. But yeah, for the old grass stuff and some good stereo rhythm stuff, you split that Gibson and that Martin, buddy, and you got a sound.
So, who was speaking of guitars? Who was the first company to approach you?
Nobody really approached me per se. Mac, my first manager, was friends with the Bolins, Bruce Bolin Sr. And he did, actually, Mac knew Danny as well, Danny Gatton, and he had done the Danny Gatton tribute concert up in D.C. After Danny passed. So he had a relationship with Fender. Funny thing is, he was tied up the day I was supposed to go. So he said, kid, just go down to Music Row, man, go to the Fender office and just walk in and tell them Mac sent you. And man, next thing I know, I played for Bruce Bolin Sr. And the next thing I know, it was, hey, we need to build you a guitar. We need to, and then that relationship started. And it was mind blowing. It didn't last very long, but, because obviously when Scottsdale doesn't know what California's doing and Nashville doesn't know what California's doing and Scottsdale's left out, which essentially happened to me, and my guitar was built in Nashville. There was just a bunch of crosshairs that were just not lining up. So that deal just didn't happen the way it should have.
The way it should have.
Yeah, and there's lots of stories with all the guitar companies, and I know online, I've been known as a guitar whore or a jumper or this, that, or the other. I've not been that way. It's and Chris, as you know, brother, when you're in the business, man, it could virtually be a number of different reasons that you have to switch companies.
Right.
I know some people out there think, oh man, Johnny just wanted something different and just switched companies. Told him, piss off and I've gone over here. No.
Yeah, but that's not the case.
No, it's not. And but I will admit, man, I So after the Varney years, you know, I toured a little while with my band, and then everything kind of went, you know, Varney sold Shrapnel, and then everything kind of, you know, went away with that. And so I was back releasing stuff independently and playing, you know, back playing with my band. And we'd go out and do some dates, but mostly back in Nashville. And I did a record called Standing Strong in 2016, and then a gospel album called Picking for the Lord that I really am proud of. I love that album because that album, man, I asked Jack Pearson, goodness, Tom Bresh, who was Merle Travis's son, which I'm wearing Merle Travis tonight, if you guys can see. Merle Travis is on my shirt.
Yeah, Merle Travis.
Yeah, I love Merle
Get
Travis.
that Merle picking.
Yeah, buddy.
Yeah.
I asked Tom Bresh and John Jorgensen, Brent Mason, Phil.
Oh, wow.
Hargus Pig Robbins is on there. I mean, goodness, there's so many, man, that were, you know, Greg Martin from the Kentucky Headhunters.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, I had a lot of fun on that record. Blake Padilla did that with me in Nashville, and of course, after that happened, I always wanted to do a record like Danny Gatton and Joey D's record called Relentless.
Yes.
And so I teamed up with brother Blake Padilla, who's been a
Great
long-time
record.
friend of mine, and we did a Christmas record together called Jammin' on Christmas.
Okay.
That essentially was B3 and electric guitar with a band behind us, and we had a lot of fun with that. And but then in 2018, man, as you know, Nashville, from 2010 on, Nashville went through a really big change.
Yeah.
And to be honest with you, man, I was like, man, I'm not liking this whole thing in the respect that Nashville was kind of getting unsafe as it was growing in size.
Yeah.
And very, very hard to park downtown, unload your gear. I mean, and then on top of that, the music itself was changing. Everything was kind of going this bro country route, and they were mixing some rap and pop in with country and this modern sound. And I got to admit, man, when I finally started realizing that the new age guitar players in Nashville did not know who Merle Haggard was,
Right.
Waylon was, because their heroes were Jason Aldean, Luke Bryant, guys like that. I'm going, kid, why did you come to Nashville and not know who Merle Haggard is? What's wrong with you? You know?
Wow.
Yeah.
So it's like this new age kind of. Now, I'm not saying that's for every picker in Nashville now, just because everything's changed. There are some that really, really love the old stuff and the traditional stuff. But I think with any style of music, man, like blues, I mean, my goodness, man, Stevie Ray Vaughan did what he did with Albert King. And always, all the blues cats always talked about B.B. and Albert King, Freddie King, Don King. No, I'm teasing. But I mean, it was like they always gave credit to the heroes that paved the way and brought them into the fold. And I think it's important that now, granted, they've driven a lot of telly playing out of Nashville now. So
you know, I was
What?
I don't want to interrupt, but it is so true. I was down there, and weird perspective. Going down Broadway, it was when I was at the 2021 NAMM, and so I'm going to meet Michael for a cocktail. He's like, "Come on down, man. We're gonna have a couple of drinks," and that's my best Michael Mason impersonation.
Nice.
And I'm walking. Yeah, he's like, that's how he hired me when I got the gig.
Yeah.
He's like, "Hey, I really like the way you play that guitar. I'll tell you what, I got a 5
Dude, that's awesome.
I got a 5-week tour coming up, man. I tell you what, man, you come out with me, we'll have a good time. I'll tell you what, I like what you're
Nice,
doing."
dude.
It was 5 weeks, right? I had 5 weeks,
Yep.
and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna, tell my students that I'll see them in 5 weeks.
Yeah.
2 years.
Oh, good gracious, man.
I came home 2 years later.
How many
Anyway.
years have you taught now, Chris?
Oh, I started teaching when I was 17.
Yeah, me as well, brother. I started teaching young as well. I'm
not surprised. I'm surprised you didn't start teaching when you were 12.
Well,
You probably did.
I'll be honest. I did teach some buddies from high school and stuff at times, but after moving to Nashville, it didn't take me long. I thought, hey man, pick up some extra cash on days I'm not working.
Yeah, there you go.
When were those days?
Well, I mean, very seldom did I guess in Nashville, man, you kind of had to make yourself take a day off.
I bet.
And some days it was really, and I got to admit, man, at 48 years old, dude, I've been suffering some pretty bad hand troubles.
Uh-oh.
But then again, I tell people, man, it's all in 9 years of, 2 and 3 gigs a day, and gosh, man, and not stretching. You basically get up in the morning, throw your duds on, run down to Broadway, lugging your amp and your guitar and a pedal board, and set the stuff up, and you just start ripping. There's no, oh, hey, boys, I need to stretch these arms out. I need to. You didn't have time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so, and then, of course, if you walk into a club on your day off, it's, oh, Johnny's in the house. We got to get him up. No stretching time.
Right.
And I guess, even doctors have said to me, boy, you musicians are athletes, dude. You're abusing the crap out of yourself. The human hands aren't made to play 12 to 16 hours a day, playing 90 knots and no smoke chicken picking all day.
Right.
Or he's like, man, and you haven't stretched, you haven't taken care of yourself. And so I have suffered with, neuropathy and some hand and arm troubles. And I, so now every time I teach anybody, I'm like, look, if you only have an hour to practice, the first 10 to 15 minutes is stretches and warm-ups, Slick. I'm telling you.
Really?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Because if you don't, man, you're going to end up just like me going, oh, because and I'm going to tell you something, boys, it hurts like hell.
Mm-hmm.
I got to a place where I couldn't even hold a flat pick anymore. I had to switch to a thumb pick.
Jesus.
Yeah, man. I mean,
was it that you had no strength or the hand was numb?
No, the index finger would just start wiggling and doing stuff on its own. I've actually had trigger finger before in my left hand.
Oh, wow.
But
wow.
This neuropathy thing, though, man, came from just, I could be sitting there with my hand on the table and all of a sudden my finger would just start moving on its own.
Mm.
And so when you're trying to hold a flat pick and your finger starts moving back and forth, your flat pick goes flying, man.
Mm-hmm.
But see, what happened is a lot of the nerves that would go from the finger would go all the way up to your elbow and then sometimes up to your shoulder.
Yep.
So, man, I'd get this pain in my index finger that would shoot all the way up to the top part of my shoulder. And it was debilitating, man. It was like I couldn't even hold the guitar, let alone play it.
Oh my God.
And, it was scary, dude. It was like the worst feeling in the world. I told Kimmy, I said, babe, the only way I can describe it to you is it would be like someone looking at Michael Jordan back in the day with the Bulls, taking a cigarette lighter and burning the bottom of his feet and then making him go out and play an NBA game with no sneakers on. That's what it felt like. It was like, yeah, do those dunks with no sneakers on, dude. And then everybody coming down from the dunk you just did is going to be stepping all over your feet while they're burned on the bottom. That's what it felt like.
So what year did that start?
In 2016.
2016.
And believe it or not, man, in the last year, I've just started getting it under control to a degree.
Oh.
And as I told you, Chris, I've been doing it holistically, brother. So I found a stuff by accident called Neuropaway.
Okay.
And it has been really helping nerve endings and stuff inside. I've always been a weightlifter and back in the day, I used to be an Olympic lifter as much as so I did clean jerk and snatch and stuff like that before I would do like 80 curls or whatever.
Because guitar playing is not enough.
But hey, man, you had to build that strength though to lug those Fender Twins around, man. With you.
Oh yeah, you're not kidding. You're not kidding.
Yeah. So I really it was not only was Nashville going through the change, but I started suffering as well. And I'm thinking to myself, man, I'm mid 40s, and I've got to find some kind of a reprieve. But in Nashville, it's the phone's ringing. Hey, Johnny, can you do this? Johnny, can you do that? Hey, I need you here Tuesday. Can you be over here Wednesday? And I'm going, man. After a while, you start just going, I need 5 minutes to breathe.
Wow. Okay.
And then when the Nashville change happened, everything started slowing down. Yeah. And as I told you, a lot of teleplant stuff was going out the window.
Yeah.
And man, this new era or new generation of kids going to Nashville are in, buckle jeans, Affliction t-shirts, and winter beanies with a Les Paul and a Kemper amp or with in-ears.
Yeah.
And I'm going, what happened to the days of blow and go, man? You throw your shit up there, turn it on, and play the gig.
Yeah.
ain't no sound checks and in ears and all this, digital crap. I don't know, man. I just now, granted, people are like, yeah, but Johnny, that's the sign of the times, man. In ears are big. Everything's, they want to bring some of that big concert tour stuff to Broadway, and I'm going, yeah, well, y'all can have it. I'm out of here. See ya.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I mean, dude, I even still when I play with my band, I use a couple of floor wedges, man. I'm not putting ears in. I'm just not doing it. So
I've never used them. I don't even know what they feel like. I've never used them. I know Tony uses them, but I don't.
I only tried them once, and I can't do it, man.
No.
Why would you want to be on stage feeling like you got headphones in?
All right, so here's the deal: is because clubs need to. I don't really understand it, or it's just the technology. The sound guys just do not want to deal with a loud amplifier, and so my Marshall is at 4, which means it's absolutely doing not its job.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's not pushing air anymore. Chris and I have talked about this with many people. We're not pushing air anymore. My guitar can't talk to the amplifier because they're both instruments, as you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Both the instrument and the amplifier are supposed to do this. And now we're at 4, and now it's just like, well, and I got these in, and it's just like, it's the gig. It's the gig of the times.
Well,
and I don't like it, but I have to do it. So
yeah, and I mean, I guess if I was forced into that, I'd kind of be like, well, but here again, man, just like picking a lane and driving, I obviously didn't listen to that too well, and the in-ears thing, I ain't doing that too well either. So
it's okay.
But I'll be honest with you boys, though. After moving to Virginia, my wife and I moved back to Chatham, Virginia, which is right next to the hometown of my wife and her family.
Okay. Yeah.
And we really, had realized how many years we sacrificed away from family for me to follow my dream and for Kimmy to, she went to Belmont University and got her degree there. Really, really loved Nashville and stayed. And met me. We got married, and she, she's always been my eyes and helped this old blind boy through life, and she's been the biggest blessing God's ever brought me as far as, having someone who not only understands, who loves their spouse, but to also take care of a handicapped person is not an easy thing. Now, granted, I'm not going to say that I don't try to do everything I can on my own, but there are just certain things I cannot do, So driving to a gig is not one of them. So Kimmy has to take me pretty much everywhere. But I have the best wife in the world. But we moved to Chatham, Virginia in 2018 in December. And I got to be honest, guys, I had no idea that my dear friend, Mr. Kenny Thurman, would be living up here in Danville.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And Kenny was one of the greatest sound men in Nashville. He worked for everyone from Vince Gill to Mike Henderson and the Blue Bloods to, Joe Diffie, Mark Chestnut, Jamie O'Neill, Phil Vassar for 10 or 11 years. Ran sound for the Opry, Third Lindsley, bunches of places in Nashville over the years. But anyway, I told him that my dream was to put in a blind man studio where I could actually see to engineer on my own and learn how to do it.
Oh,
and he said, brother, we can do it, man. We will do it. And I just thought, I had a studio in Nashville too, but so many bells and, buttons and switches and rack gear and cables. And I mean, man, I was just petrified of it.
Wow.
And I couldn't see to run anything.
Right.
So when I came up here and Kenny said he could help me, I was thinking, yeah, okay, but I'm going to end up with another Nashville studio like I had before. It really doesn't go anywhere because Johnny's deathly afraid of it, But I swear to God, boys, Kenny said, boy, I can have you a studio built and I can have you up and running, creating your music in 3 hours.
No way.
And I said, dude, you're full of crap, man. He said, no, man. He said, I'm dead serious. I can have you up and running. So at the end of it, man, he, we bought all the stuff together, and I had done some gigs with the U.S. Army Band, which I'm really proud of. I love our armed forces, and had a lot of Army folks in my family, and being legally blind, that was just something I could never do. But the music brought me together with the Army, and I love it. I was so proud to work with those guys.
That's great.
And so I made a little money with them, which enabled me to have my studio. Kenny and I went shopping, and Next thing I know, man, he has the studio. He said, "You just go upstairs with Kimmy, leave me alone for a couple hours. I'll call you down when I'm ready." And I went back downstairs when he called me, and literally, boys, no lie, he had me up and running in 3 hours, and he handed me this little iExpand key. And he said, "You see this little key, bud? He said, I've even put you in a blind band USB port so you can pick it up and look at it. You put this little key into this USB port." And he said, "Dude, anything that is in your studio you recorded will go, you just download it onto this key. You could pop it in your phone and send it right over to me through Dropbox." And I was like, interesting. He said, "I want you to have me your first song sent to me in a week."
So
Well,
everything that goes into this
morning.
So everything that goes into this key comes out as stems, and then he can take it from there.
Well, essentially, from this key, I can download all the tracks that I've recorded,
Right.
all the waveforms and everything, download it to the key, send it over to Kenny via Dropbox, and then turn around and send him an MP3 of what I've created so he can listen to it in his email.
Okay.
Or a text message, or put it on Facebook, or whatever I want to do,
Right.
So, yeah, and he said, but I want you to send me your first song in a week. He had it by the next morning.
Good for you, man.
He created a monster.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Now, but get this, though, boys, because after that happened, I started working on my new album, which was basically to take all these instruments that I hadn't played in a number of years,
Okay.
put them all in my studio and go, wow, I haven't played a 5-string banjo in a while. Ooh, I haven't played this in a while. I ain't played drums in a while. I hadn't played any of those instruments since I was creating stuff for Vibe back in 02, 03, or I'm sorry, 03.
Wow.
So anyway, Kenny sets me all up and he goes, "Now, dude, you're not only going to create the song and track it all, but you're going to engineer it all yourself." And I'm going, "Man, dude, this is going to be crazy." But what happened was COVID.
Oh,
Next
interesting.
thing I know,
Okay.
all of my buddies were done off the road. There was no road work. There was
nothing.
Yeah. And so, man, I'll tell you what, between the time Kenny and I opened my studio in 2019 to today, we have recorded over 330 songs.
Whoa.
Yeah. And because what we did, man, is we started offering people really good deals on full band tracks because it's one guy. It's me creating.
Holy shit. Oh, yeah. Hold on. Stop. Hold on.
Yeah.
I have to give perspective here. Okay. So I call you up and I'm like, okay, I got this song idea, or I need a band to play the song. It's all Johnny.
Man, I literally have a friend.
Effing crazy.
Yeah, I have a friend of mine who's an evangelist, and we ended up doing a record with him. And dude, literally it says his name, vocals and dobro, and then Johnny Hiland, guitar, banjo, bass, keyboards, blah 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 blah. And the list just
You're just saying Johnny, everything else.
Yeah, but boys, the funny thing is literally, so it's me tracking and Kenny mixing and mastering.
Yeah.
And we live one town apart, like 16 miles apart. But if I get done with something, I could just Dropbox it right over to him. He can have it in no time. So we had people from all over the world sending us full band, like a singer-songwriter with an acoustic vocal. And they would just send me an MP3 of them singing their song. And I would go track it. I would track the whole thing, send them the track, get their approval on it. And then I'd say, okay, now you either, if you have a studio in your home where you can sing, well, then do your vocals and your harmony vocals or whatever, and then send me back those files, and Kenny will mix and master it for you.
So
that's
how
we were doing it.
I'm very curious. So someone would send you a track, vocals, acoustic guitar. Would you do any kind of like reharmonization? Would you do any kind of like would you add a bunch of, kind of just
elaborate?
Yeah. Would you elaborate on it?
Oh, dude, absolutely. I mean, now granted, if someone sent me a song and it needed like a 4-part harmony guitar line on the intro, oh yeah, it was that. Yeah.
Damn right.
I mean,
That's
But
amazing.
here again, though, that's the thing, though, boys. It was total creative control. Like, for an example, someone would send me their song and they'd go, "Man, I kind of hear this like, I'm hearing something like Spin Doctors,
Interesting.
like
Okay. All right.
like a Little Miss Can't Be Wrong."
Okay.
Mhm.
And I'd go, "Yeah, cool," and I love the Spin Doctors. Great drums, killer guitar
Yeah.
lines. And I'm like, yeah, okay. Or, hey, man, I want this one really Ray Price shuffle right in your face,
Mhm.
And now, granted, whatever I couldn't play, like twin fiddle parts or steel guitar, we'd farm it out to Nashville.
You're telling me you don't play steel?
No. I mean, I play lap steel, but I don't play pedal steel.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I play lap steel a lot, but I can't. And I actually can play a little bit of pedal steel, but you have to be so precise with that bar.
Well, it's also the knee levers that kick.
I don't have a problem with the coordination of that. It's just
no, I couldn't do it.
It's just getting that bar so precise.
Yeah,
that was my biggest problem, and you need eyes to do that. So
gotcha.
for me, it's kind of like
I had a gig. I had an instrumental project, and I originally had a Hammond player in the band, and the Hammond player got picked up by Rat Dog, which was Bob Weir's band.
Yeah.
So I was like, that's cool, man. I was really happy for him.
Oh, yeah.
But I had a gig. So I brought in Jack Stanton, steel player.
Yeah.
And it was a club. No one in this club, we were talking about the younger generation. He's setting up, and all these people at the bar are like, what's that? What's going on? Right.
Yeah.
But Jack was because Jack was into the Hammond stuff. He loved that. So he had a little rack.
Yeah.
So like
he
could emulate it. Yeah, he could emulate a Hammond really good. And everyone was like, I didn't mean to go off on that tangent, but when you said that,
man. But see, that's the beautiful thing with music, man. Is I mean, now granted, I emulate a steel guitar just on the guitar.
Oh yes, you do.
So sometimes if we couldn't get a steel player, I mean, what I would actually do is send the file back with me playing some steel parts on the electric.
Okay.
And say, look, if you don't want to spend any extra money, how does this suit you? Because then what I'd do is put some like ragtimey piano mixed with the steel guitar sounds off a B Bender Telly or something, which I do have a Kiesel retro solo with a Glazier Bender in it, so it's awesome.
Oh. You got to talk about your Kiesel deal at one point.
Oh, buddy,
keep going.
One of my favorite things to talk about. But to be honest with you,
same here.
So I would actually get creative. And then I would say, look, you don't have to spend another dime on this track if you like this. But if you're a diehard bone nuts traditional country lover like me, and you want a real pedal steel and twin fiddles, we can farm that out to Nashville, but it would cost you an extra $100 a track.
Yeah.
From the guys we get from Nashville. So it really boiled down to, at that time, what you wanted to spend money on. Or you go, dang, I like what Johnny did. It's kind of neat. It's different, whatever.
Yeah.
And I, of course, when I play steel stuff on the guitar, I try to be as close to true steel form as I can get, So,
right. Yeah.
So, and I love, man, I mean, pedal steel guitar is one of my favorite instruments. So in being in Nashville all those years, anytime I got to play with a pedal steel player, I was always copping licks, man, or trying to,
Well, that's the fascinating thing about steel players is that, I mean, I remember playing with Jack, and there was a few cats that I played with in Nashville on certain nights, and I was always positioned in the perfect. Not that it would have meant anything to me visually, but it was great to be next to them.
Right.
They would always play something, and I would try to remember, and it was great because it kind of freed me up to think, okay, I've got to make that work.
Yeah,
And that was the great thing. I keep bringing up Jack's name, but the great thing about Jack is that, Jack was also a fan of guys like Pat Martino and a lot of those guys.
Sure.
So we would talk about that stuff before a gig, and I got a funny gig story about Jack.
Nice.
We were doing that same show where this young crowd is like, what's going on? So I had this band together a little bit of time, and we used to do Orange Blossom Special.
Yep.
And the drummer all of the guys in the band were Philly jazz cats, like they.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, real Philly guys, like jazz guys, and so it was the first gig. Just like you were saying earlier, Johnny, about like you don't know these guys. There were no rehearsal or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
So and Jack killed Orange Blossom. So as right before I called the tune, I said, "Hey Jack, I give the drummer a solo on this tune," and he goes, "Okay, all right." So we plays the head, does his improv. Of course, it's just mind numbing,
right?
And then I cue the drum solo. Drum solo happens. I take my guitar off. I lean it against the amp and I head to the bar. Jack follows me and he's like, "Hey, how are we getting back in?" I said, "Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it." Right? No, I don't. Seriously. And Jack's like, and I ordered Jack. I said, "What are you drinking? What are you having?" He's like, "Are you serious right now?" I said, "Oh, I'm completely serious. What are you having?" He's like, I'll have a whiskey." Good. That's what I'm having. We have a whiskey. And we're leaning against the bar. The drummer's cooking, just destroying it,
Yeah.
And Jack's like, what's going on? When are we going back on? I said, "Don't worry about it. Finish your drink." Right? Keep going, keep going, keep going. Finally, I said, "It's time." And he's following me. He's like, "Listen to me, dude. If this is a shit show, I'm never playing with you again." And we had played a lot of gigs together. I said, "Oh, it's gonna be great." So now he sits down behind his steel, and I put the guitar back on very nonchalantly. I'm not gonna lie, I'm kind of half in the bag. All of a sudden, the drummer's doing all this stuff, and all of a sudden, one hand, he starts bringing back in that beat, but he's still doing all this stuff. And I look over because I knew he was going to do this. Yeah. I look over at Jack. I bring my hand up and I said, "And we're in." And bang. And after the tune, afterwards, Jack looks at me and he says, "F you, Chris Gordon."
That's awesome, man. Yeah, Danny Gatton would do that stuff, man. He'd let Tim Berry just fly, man. And then you're going, how in the heck's he going to get back into this? I mean,
I live for those moments.
But I love it, man. I mean, even when I used to do that with my band, when we were on the road, hell, it's like you said, take a piss, sometimes you got to run and go. So funny story though, is I used to love to get back on the stage and go, "What can we see demolished? R sharp minor, L flat," because C demolished was one of my favorite keys, man. I mean,
there you go.
So, but yeah, honestly, man, you live for moments like that, though. You really do. Yeah, those are priceless moments right there, man.
Well, I like the idea of that, because obviously there's always the risk, right? There's always there's such an element of danger, but I think that's the crux of progression. It's like taking it there, and when you get really good, it's interesting too because you do it, and maybe the guys in the band, a couple of cats in the band, are sitting there going, "Oh man," and they're sweating. No one can see it, but to the audience, it looks like something that had been rehearsed for eons, but it wasn't. It was like, you had no idea. We had no idea that was going to work. So it was like a comedian. It's like, we don't know if this joke's going to land. Hopefully Chris, it does.
Chris, I swear, man, you and I are going to have phone conversations, brother, because I got tons of stories, brother.
You don't have to hold back.
No, well, dude, I'll tell you what. I'll just briefly say this one thing. You get me with the next time we're on the phone together. Because I don't want to divulge this whole story because, man, people would be like, "Oh," I was playing the House of Blues in Anaheim, California, for an just after an AM show, right?
Okay.
And I was opening a show for Dick Dale.
Wow.
And like 3 minutes before, the stage manager already came up to the dressing room. You already heard Johnny Hiland to stage right, Johnny Hiland's band to stage right. So we start walking down, dude, and I'm telling you, a shit pain hit me like you ain't never seen.
Oh, no.
I get down, and they're like, "Johnny Hiland band on in 3 minutes." And I'm going, like that look comes over your face like, "Oh, no." And I see the stage manager go by, and he's got this big headset on. I'm like, "Hey, dude, is there a bathroom back here?" And he's like, in Dick Dale's dressing room. So I beat on the door as hard as I can. I'm like, Dick, I got 3 minutes, bro. Can I use your bathroom? And he's like, yeah, man, come in. And they're eating pizza, and the bass player's got his bass on, and they're going over something. Dude, this bathroom was like a corridor, and it was all white and made of tile. So, man, the whole time they're in there eating and rehearsing, Johnny Boy is just tearing this damn bathroom. It was so funny because I open the door and they're all just like, you can see their faces like, oh my God. And so I run out there right as they're calling my name, and I'm thinking to myself, God, please don't let me shit myself on stage.
Oh,
and so I run
before.
out there and I'm doing my show, and it was so funny because, man, it was like NAMM show the next year after that happened. I'm speaking to somebody, and I don't remember who it was, like Bootsy Collins and James Burton and myself, and we're all standing there, and then Dick Dale walks up behind me in front of all these guys and goes, "Don't ever let this kid use your bathroom before he'll kill you. He'll kill you, I'm telling you." I was like, oh. And then he bear hugged me so bad. He's like, "Kid, I still got that smell up my freaking nose."
Oh!
I mean, dude, that was awesome. So I can't even believe I just told that on. Oh man, I can't believe it. But anyway, let's change subjects. Subjects, ladies and gentlemen. So Kiesel guitars, man. So after leaving Music Man, dude, I love Music Man guitars and always will, and I love Sterling and the company, but after 7 years, nothing was happening.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So I had the chance to move with Jeff Kiesel, man, and looking T style, which obviously Kiesel calls the solo, from an AM show. And he knew I was, kind of disappointed in the whole Music Man thing, and there's a long story behind that, but anyway, he said, "Man, he said, dude, what do you think of this?" And I said, "Oh my God, the guitar is gorgeous." And the next thing I know, he had the chance to talk to Jeff. And Jeff said, "God, yeah, man, I'd love to talk to Johnny." And we instantly hit it off, man. And I absolutely love Jeff and Mark and the family. I mean, they are the sweetest people on planet Earth. And now, now that I moved to Virginia, I have no management, no booking agent, no, I'm publicist. Everything is all pretty much gone for me. But then that happened when COVID hit anyway.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So, but as I told you, Chris, I don't feel like the bug under the thumb all the time now. I feel like I'm free again.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So to be honest, I really have found my guitar home with Kiesel guitars, and from the solo, the Johnny Hiland model came into existence.
Wow.
And this is a sparkle one that Jeff made me for my 45th birthday.
Now, real quick.
Yeah.
Look at that. Now, he canceled a vacation to do that, didn't he?
Something to that effect.
Look at that headstock. Oh my God.
Yeah, man, she's beautiful.
Wow.
Yeah, this is actually a roasted maple neck on this. But what we did is we moved the knobs and the switch.
Yeah, look at that.
So now, when you got steak fries for fingers like I do, man, I could never reach the tone knob or volume knob properly on a regular tele style.
Okay.
So by moving, what we did is these signature pickups were designed by Billy Miguel of Electric City Pickups in Waymart, Pennsylvania.
I'm going to solo you here. I'm going to solo your picture here. Hold on. Solo way up. There we go.
Oh, look at that.
Oh, that's gorgeous.
Man.
Oh, I see what they did.
Yep. We moved the knobs and the switch.
Yeah.
And then, of course, my pickups that were designed by Billy are now made in-house by Kiesel as well, because Electric City Pickups shut down. So they make my signature pickups in-house now, and this guitar's been around for about 6 years now, I guess. And I just absolutely love this guitar.
That is beautiful.
Look at that.
Now, Chris, that's that headstock I was telling you about, buddy, where some guys were like, "Oh man, it looks too rock. It looks too," and I'm like, "No, because it doesn't resemble any other company out there."
Right, exactly.
And man, look at the neck carve on the back of the.
Oh yeah, I was going to ask.
God.
I was going to ask you to do that. To show
Yeah,
that neck
the neck carve on a Kiesel, man, is just brilliant.
There is nothing like it.
Yeah,
Wow.
incredible, man.
So I have an interesting question about
All
about that. Let's see if I can figure out how I get back to where we were. No, I don't want that. There we go. So on my headless Kiesels,
Yeah.
these necks don't move. So can you do a neck bend on yours? Like if you ever wanted to?
Yeah, like if I hit an E chord, I can,
Yeah,
that's cool.
My brother. Cool.
That's
yeah,
cool.
little tiny.
I was just, I know it's kind of an arbitrary question, but I was curious about it because I found out the hard way that it doesn't do that on a gig when it was, but I mean, I wasn't upset about it. I mean,
It's like
the band leader was, but I wasn't. They're just so solid.
Yeah, man,
You know,
they are.
It's like so there. It's like, you know,
Chris, does that have 2 truss rods in it?
no.
Just
No,
one?
but it does have 2 carbon fiber rods running up each side of the truss rod, though.
Yes,
Oh,
that's true. I'm sorry. Yes, it does.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that's why
but
it's not gonna move.
Right, but
Yeah,
yeah,
it's got a
but,
dual action truss rod, but then the carbon fiber
Okay.
rods, man, that Kiesel uses are just, I mean, God, man, these necks are so stable. It's ridiculous.
well, it's one of the things that when I this one and yeah, I have a few of these guys. So one of the things, because I got really into the multi-scale,
Yeah.
was I said, hey, can I get an extended range multi-scale with the trem arm? And they were
When
like,
did you ask that?
this was a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they were like, no. But then, like, what was it, 3 or 4 months ago?
Not even, dude. They actually, well, I think Jeff did it on a Facebook Live about a month ago.
Yeah, about a month
But
ago.
he just did a video of new for 2023. They are my family, man. I love them very dearly. You know, obviously, man, they are the best U.S. custom built guitars for the best price. You know, because there are no
without question.
Without question, man, they're incredible. But I got to admit, man, the quality and the craftsmanship of these instruments, man, I don't know of a company out there that's beating Kiesel. I really don't.
No, and I think some companies try.
Yeah,
but it's just like.
And I know one
really?
thing, man. They make the prettiest sparkles I've ever seen in my life.
Oh man,
I know, right?
These finishes are stupid.
Jeff Kiesel's insane, man. Well, he and his painters. I know Jeff paints a lot of guitars, but I mean, gosh, man, all the painters and well, everybody in the factory, man, they're all just incredible people.
Right.
And I'm just so proud to be a part of the family, man. I really am.
Yeah, and congratulations for that. I think that's awesome.
Thank you, brother. Yeah, I'm so proud of this guitar, man. It's just so awesome.
And there was another thing you were talking about with me over the phone that I find interesting that you said was that you could add to it. What was there was a mechanism?
I've got the run bar on a couple of mine.
The run bar, right?
Yeah, the run bar is that thing I told you where when I switched to a thumb pick, I couldn't sweep. And so with the run bar on now, I can actually get one and show it to you. But essentially, it's just a black little mechanism that fits on your guitar, and I put it right in between my neck and middle pickup.
Okay.
But it makes it to where you can do arpeggio sweeps with a thumb pick.
Wow.
Or if you're
both.
And if you're a student, if you've got a student that's a young kid and you're trying to teach them pick control or pick speed, like accuracy of the pick, man, it's an incredible teaching product or, learning product for youngsters.
Because it keeps them from sinking.
Right.
That's what I used to say to the kids. I was like, stop sinking the pick.
Right.
You would hear it where they'd actually click on the guitar. They'd be like,
yeah. Absolutely.
So I came up with I was like,
I'd be like, yeah, man, it's true. You can hear
That's
it.
great.
Yeah.
That is so cool.
It's very obvious, man, that it happens. But it even happens to us sometimes too, though, doesn't it, Chris?
Yeah, I mean, I was, one of the things that I've been talking a lot about is is this kind of concept, not a concept, but the idea of staying in this kind of state, relaxed state when you're playing. And sometimes, like I was listening to Loud and Proud today. Like I had that cranked. I had my neighbors are a little angry with me, but it's all good. I had it cranked. I'm like, I wanted to ask you about this. Like when you're playing at those, not only just stylistically, but the velocities, I hear a lot of power behind it. Where are you with that? Like, are you relaxed? Or are you full on, or do you have a sense of just?
I feel like a lot of me, Chris, is I pick very hard, yes, but I don't. I'm actually really relaxed when I play. I just have a very, very strong right hand when it comes to, so using acrylic fingernails too, that you got to kind of create the chicken, so to speak, right?
Okay,
so
I like this.
In order to create the chicken, man, you gotta make him pluck. So you gotta make him cluck. So in order to make him cluck, dude, you gotta pull hard.
Yeah, you do.
Okay.
So you're actually utilizing more power in your right hand than you would think. But then again, you still have to keep both hands working in unison. So I mean, I kind of tend to play a bit hard, but yet body-wise, I'm still relaxed.
That's okay. That's where I was going. It's like you're keeping your center at a
and when you're when you're playing chicken picking licks too, man. Like when you're doing like open string licks. I'm actually so far. Let me see if I can back up a little bit. So when you're doing licks, like this kind of thing. When you're doing open string licks like that, it's just a very simple thing, but coming backwards is really hard because you're doing a pull, upstroke, downstroke. So I'm actually picking pretty hard.
Okay.
But my left hand's just kind of smoothing along, doing its
smoothing
thing.
along. Okay.
Yeah. That is a hard thing to develop. Is that okay? I'm going to go for something, and then my right hand has to be a little bit stronger to get the velocity or the sound I'm trying to get, and then tighten up on the left hand. And that's a hard thing to. If you've already learned it the wrong way, to unlearn it is tough, man.
Yeah, it really is. It's well, and that's the one thing you try to help students with is don't start anything the wrong way. Just do it right the first time.
All right, so this is what I got some semi-advanced kids, and they well, let's start this, and here's the tempo, and we're just gonna do eighth notes, and they go dunk 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 on the first note, and I go, oh, stop, never do a false start.
Right.
If you don't know it, then you got to just slow that tempo down even more, so that you're never learning something wrong in the beginning.
Right.
Especially if this is a lick. Come on.
Yeah, true that.
Yeah.
True that, man. That's absolutely and I've had a few false starts in my day, man. Let me tell you.
I'm doing it right now.
Yeah, it happens, man. It happens to all of us. But then again, it's like you said, it's a good thing to learn when you're young, man, so that you don't do it. You don't make a habit of it. I'll just say that.
Right.
Yeah. Do you still find joy in obviously you find joy in music. I mean, that's a given. We all do. Yeah. But do you still have that desire with practicing, like the idea of like, okay, I'm going to go practice. I'm going to go practice.
God, yeah, brother. That never goes away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
for me right now, man, it's I'm into that. Like right now, I'm kind of into Western swing a little bit more. Mm-hmm. So I'm actually kind of working on like just Jimmy Bryant stuff, like that kind of But it's kind of weird because it's not where my ear wants to go all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But player, I love flat 5s and 9s and 13s, and now that's weird as a chicken picker to say, and so I'm also like dealing with super Locrian stuff, and so yeah, I'm working on stuff all the time, man. Yeah, just trying to get better.
Yeah, I mean stylistically, but also just from a just kind of a harmonic sense, like different harmonic kind of pathways.
Well, and also trying to be, using Chet and Merle Travis stuff. I'm still trying to come up with that. Like, for an example, just this.
Nice.
Nice.
That kind of stuff,
So, is that informed by what you're hearing, or is there a like, are you also thinking theoretically?
No,
or
no,
you're just like, no, I'm just hearing. This is what I'm hearing.
No, man, it's funny. Today, my lessons, man, are about, I pretty much teach advanced chicken picking stuff all the time. So I'll have guys that come to me that already know Brent Mason stuff and know Red and know Albert Lee stuff. But a lot of times these kids get thinking so modally that I'll be like, dog bite, man, get those modes out of your head, dude.
Okay, this is interesting.
Yeah, because really, man, I'm like, look, man, you're so technical at what you play. I don't feel what you're feeling. You're saying something based on, look what I just learned. But I'm not feeling you. And, I guess that's what I learned from Jimmy Bruno and Pat Martino, man, is if you're going to play any kind of swingy thing, you got to feel it. It can't be just... It's like, no, you want it to have a swag.
Well, I was born and raised on Chet Atkins and Jerry Reed, James Burton, Don Rich, Danny Gatton, and Albert Lee. Well, I loved country guitar and I knew what I wanted to be. So I packed up my things and moved to Nashville.
One of the things I want to, speaking of Jimmy Bruno, you got to hang with Jimmy and Pat.
I did. Yeah. It's been many, many years back. It was like, gosh, I don't know, 2005, somewhere in there.
Yeah, we had Jimmy on the show a few weeks ago.
Man, I love that.
Yeah,
so much.
Oh, he's so good.
But
so anyway, continue with what you were saying.
But I mean, I'm just kind of getting into this whole. I love mixing, the Chet. I love that kind of stuff, and so it's like, all right, so how do I take that and mix it with some Bruno style stuff, and mix it with a little Jimmy Bryant, and just having fun with it, but not to the point it feels learned or contrived. I still want it to swing. I want it to have that swagger. I want it to have, it's funny, man, when you start teaching students that are so well trained.
Right.
But yet you go, kid, I'm not feeling it, dude. I feel like you're a robot. I'm like, and then you get good, and it's, But where's this?
Right.
I'm
Right.
not feeling the love and the passion of the music. I'm not feeling the swagger. And so for me, a lot of times, man, it's just teaching students to go, would you stop thinking so modally and think more musically? Like, for an example, we were mentioning Mixolydians earlier. Man, I can't help being a chicken picker and loving the sound of. I love that.
Yeah.
I love a flat 7. I just do.
Yeah.
So when anything that I play, man, I'm automatically gonna. I even had this little young kid not long ago, well, a couple of years back now, but he would take a lesson, and every time he'd go, Mr. Hiland, you're such a Mixolydian player. I just start laughing.
Well, kid's already like got his modes down.
Yeah, but he made me laugh because I was trying to tell him at the time, it's okay to understand modes and to have that knowledge, but put it back here so that at the gig you're not filling your brain full of. Because I was trying to convey that when you get on the stage, you cannot, if you overthink theory, you're done.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, when you get on the stage, simplify your mind. In fact, I just did a True Fire course on shed to stage. So how do you take the woodshed mind and push it back? And then at the gig, you're thinking, I said, kids, I'm going to be honest. When I'm at a gig, I have 3 scales in my mind. The major scale to find the melody to the song, because that's the most important thing. Then I use major pentatonic if I need to get through a line quickly. And then if we're in a minor key, I'm going to use the minor blues scale.
Mm-hmm.
But I said all that other theory just goes right to the back of my brain because I don't want anything else clouding me finding the melody first so that I can craft my solo and embellish the melody.
Okay.
So it's funny because I try to get these kids to, especially kids that are really well trained in theory, is to go, well, Mr. Hiland, every time you come to see me at a gig, I choke up, man. And I'm like, you choke up? But I said, you choke up, son, not because I'm there. It's because you're overthinking it. So to me, it's not so much the fingering or do I play it exactly like Chris just did. As long as I can get the understanding of where you are and what you're trying to say, then I can go, okay, maybe I can say that too. But it's about saying something versus just, oh, hey, show me how you played that. Because I know deep down inside, I would never see your fingers enough to learn it exactly the way you did it.
Mm-hmm.
And it wouldn't be, maybe it wouldn't be conducive to do that in the first place, right?
Right.
Because it's taken away from what you would bring to it on your own. And that's what I was getting back to earlier
I think what's funny about that, though, is so I mean, if I actually took what you played and then went, well, how would I actually do that? I'd go like. And I'd go, oh, geez, man, maybe that 4 and 5 thing or like 41-51 thing works really well with what Chris played. That'd be fun.
Right.
And we might write something together over that. You just, that's what I'm saying. Sometimes an idea off one line grabs you and you go, you might think to yourself, gee, I can't grab his line exactly, but I know how to add to it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So then all of a sudden it starts branching, so I might not necessarily know every single thing about what you played, but instantly in my mind, music forms.
Years ago, I took lessons from Greg Howe.
Oh, man.
And
what a beast.
Yeah. And I remember we were hanging out and he was playing this thing. Sorry, I'm kicking my microphone.
It's all right.
Where he's doing this thing. Yeah. That cricket thing is that kind of collapsing thing with his finger that he would do.
Right.
And I said, hey, man, where did you come up with that? And he's like, well, when I first heard Eruption, I didn't know Eddie was tapping. I thought he was rolling. I thought he was rolling the finger. So that that lick, he thought he was doing it with one hand.
Wow. I hate to say this, Chris, but I guess when you're out of sight, you're out of mind. And I feel like because I have moved away from Nashville, they've forgotten about me, and I guess I've moved on with life. And I'll always have my fun days of Nashville and remembering what I've done and how much fun I had and who I learned from. Because, man, you know as well as I do, brother, back in the 90s, you had Pete Mitchell, who played with Ernest Tubb and the Texas Troubadours. Pete was playing downtown. Red Vocart was downtown. Scott Coney.
Yeah,
I mean, all these amazing Dwayne Phillips, Randy Coors, Lynn Polson, all these amazing players down there. And, you know, I'm not saying there aren't amazing players down there right now. For all I know, there could be hundreds of them. But I guess, you know, the day of Johnny Hiland running all over Broadway is over. So I guess, you know, people pass Don Kelly videos around every once in a while, you know, and hopefully that stuff will live forever. I hope. I guess it's like when you actually say, I'm going to follow this career and I'm going to live my dream, you hope that you get to create some form of legacy or some form of, gee, I hope people remember me when they saw me in Nashville, or if they saw me on the road with the Johnny Band, or if they saw me do a show with, I mean, I actually, you know, Chris, you were saying you saw me at the G3 thing.
Yeah.
I mean, gosh, man, how that was just incredible when you said that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's just, you just kind of hope that people love what you do and they kind of hold on to you, because, you know, it's like me loving, I mean, dude, I love Eddie Van Halen. I love Satriani. I love Vi. I love Skaggs and Warner. And, you know, I couldn't pick a lane and drive because I had too many heroes.
Too many heroes.
See, now I'm hoping that, you know, in today's modern world, these kids will say, you know, or maybe they'll add my name to the chicken picking list. I hope. But if they don't, that's okay. I mean, that's just life, right? I mean, you know, not everybody's going to love everybody's playing, and you know, you can only hope and pray that you've touched somebody with what you play, you know?
Yeah, that's the key, you know. I mean,
That's the key.
You know,
Yeah.
you can only be yourself at the end of the day, you know.
Yeah, man. And I consider everything that I've done, boys, a blessing from the good Lord above, because I really had no idea as a kid what I was going to do with my life. So he's really, to me, it's been him giving me a purpose in life.
The trajectory to me is fascinating, because, and I'm going to tie the Gatton thing into this too, because, you know, the similarities there, because, you know, Gatton, you know, obviously just a ridiculous talent like yourself. And I often think about that sometimes, you know, because I remember when Gatton left us.
Oh yeah.
I remember the day, and I remember, you know, and 94.
Yep.
And then 3 years later, it's Hiland's on the scene, and it was almost like this kind of. Well, there was this kind of carrying of that torch, because,
you know, Chris,
Gatton would touch on these other styles in this way, and then there was this, you know, then there's Johnny Hiland, and it's like, hey, and but taking it even further, you know, like, hey, Steve, hey, Yngwie, hey, Joe, good to see you. Check this shit out.
Well, you know, man, I got to jump on stage with Joe Bonamassa one day and had fun with Joe, and we became, you know, buddies. But I guess what I'm saying, Chris, is everything I've ever dreamed of, man, the good Lord is allowed to see happen for me.
Yeah.
And I'm 48, and I still dare to dream big, man. I still have things I want to do and I want to accomplish. So, but for you to even stick me in the same sentence with Danny Gatton, brother, is an honor in itself, and I'm very humbled by that, because Danny is obviously my biggest hero. I love
yeah.
And I will say, the thing about Danny that always captivated me was his aggressive approach to the instrument. Never fearing anything. I mean, and I got to admit, brother, I put, you know, when I watch you, I get to giggling going, my God, man, he could go up with Yngwie any day of the week, or Vi, or Satch, or any of them, you know.
I appreciate that.
So what I'm getting at is, yes, I really do believe that in the guitar world of guys of our age, Chris, I think you're, you know,
I'm older than you.
but we still have a love. We're of the generation where we have
Yeah,
a kindred love and respect for all of our peers.
absolutely.
That is true.
And I hope the younger generation can continue in that same vein.
Yeah.
To me, man, I will sit down and listen to a Schofield record and then pop on a Rush record and then pop on a Danny Gatton record. And to me, every form of music, man, is just so awesome. And so, you know, it's not about me sitting here name dropping who I've gotten to work with and all this and that. It's the fact that I have been able to live this dream, brother, and not really and literally say I'm not done yet. I've got more I want to do.
Sure.
Yeah.
But it's
Awesome.
all based on the fact that I don't know where the good Lord's going to take me or what's going to happen tomorrow. But I do know that there's more music down inside of this boy right in here that's got to come out. That's just all there is to it. You know, I mean, so I really am very humbled by the love I've had all these years from many great people and obviously players like yourself, Chris. Gosh, buddy, I'm humbled very, very much.
Well, I'm humbled that you actually listen to me, and I appreciate that deeply. You know.
Oh, buddy, I listen to you every time you're on.
I really do.
So, but yeah, man, I'm just like I said today, and I'm not really back on the road with my band. But have you heard the Chatham Sessions record, Chris? The first song on that record, man, is just called the Guitar Song because I couldn't really didn't really know what to name it. It's funny because because it talks about mixing chicken picking and rockabilly and.
My name is Johnny Hiland from Chatham, Virginia, and you know that I love to play. The boys and I are gonna play it loud and proud, cause that is the only way. Well, I'm gonna pick you some chicken picking guitar. I'm gonna pick you some rockabilly guitar. I'm gonna pick you some blues guitar with rock and roll on the side. Well, I'm gonna pick you some chicken picking guitar. I'm gonna pick you some rockabilly guitar. I'm gonna pick you some blues guitar with rock and roll.
So that whole record happens in the process of me learning how to engineer.
Wow.
And then to go, wow, man, it's been a long time since I played this drum beat. Let's see how long I can go without falling off the stool, So I mean, this record, the Chatham Sessions really means a lot to me, man, because it's like, it's not the most overproduced record. It's not, I guess some people would go, gosh, man, in some ways it almost has a reference like a demo in a way, but it's just me being creative and saying, look, if I can give people any form of me that goes beyond just guitar, what could I do? I'm just going to create. Because I'm in a small town. I'm in a town, Chatham, Virginia, man, is like the size of Mayberry,
Yeah.
So I love it in the respect that I get to be Johnny. And matter of fact, I made a joke with Chris the other day, Tony. I said, man, it's so great. I can walk down to Family Dollar and ask what toilet paper is on sale, and nobody knows me, So, so they know the bar guy's coming in asking what toilet paper is on sale, so they'll walk me down and show me. Great, man. I love this little town so much, and being around family, man, what a blessing that is. So I couldn't be happier these days, and really, like I said, don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. I do have a few wonderful things in the works that I can't really talk about.
Okay.
But one of the things I just found out last week is I'm a nominee for the Maine Country Music Hall of Fame this year.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I don't know if I was supposed to say anything, but I haven't obviously been picked or nothing. But even just to be a nominee, man, is such a blessing.
Yeah. Wow. Congratulations.
So what I was saying, guys, is when COVID hit and everything kind of ended for a lot of people in the music business, I guess being free, more free without, being, like I said, being the bug under the thumb in the business.
Right.
Now it's just so, I guess it's so rewarding to realize I'm almost 50 years old and I still got that fire and that bug to create new music and to be productive and stay on top of things. And And I'm just blessed, guys. There's no.
I think that is a blessing, to have the fire,
Yeah, man.
I think it's the fire of life, it's
It
that
is.
it's the drive that keeps us going, whatever that path may be. It may be like, oh, I want to start a new band, or it may be I want to learn more. I want to go back to studying again, or I want to be a better teacher, anything,
Sure.
Have to have that drive, I mean, I'm 54, so like when I still, I look it, but I don't feel it. Like, I look in the mirror. I'm like, yeah, I still feel like I'm 12. I certainly
too,
act
brother.
like I am. But that drive, that's the key.
Yeah, I'm starting to get white in the beard, man. So yeah, it's happening. So,
this is all dyed, so don't even worry.
Don't start with me with the white in the beard. Oh man. My new name is.
I got so mad at my hair, I just shaved the shit off, But man, it was like me hearing Red Vocart and Pete Mitchell and Scott Coney and all those boys. I was thinking, I am in the wrong town. Same thing, man. It was like, gosh, when you hear some of these, road dogs going downtown playing their butts off, and you're going, oh no, man. And then you realize some of them are session guys, some of them are road dogs for big artists, and you go, okay, I better go home and practice hard though. And
when did you feel that you had it though? After the national,
I never did.
I never did,
man. I guess when you're on the road and you're with your own band and your name's on the marquee, that's a different story.
Okay.
But never really felt like, and dude, the internet says I'm worth like 1.5 million, and boy, that is a bunch of horse shit. And if it cost 10 cents to take a shit, I'd have to borrow a quarter, Chris. Come on. I get my hunting hats at Walmart, man.
Especially in Dick Dale's dressing room.
Dick Dale, kid's wearing the right color, brown, man.
Oh my God.
And I used to have a hunting hat, man, that said if it's brown, it's down. So
Oh, that's funny. That is funny.
But no, really though, guys, I have not been made of money. And that's the funny thing, man. People don't realize when you're an artist on the road and you're paying your management, and your booking agent, and your band, and you're paying for fuel and rooms and this. Half the time the artist comes home broke. And so I'm not sitting here dogging anybody or being jaded or pissed off or anything. But when people actually ask me today, man, how come you don't go back on the road? I just simply say, look, it's just too expensive. And, can I make it worth it to go back out? Just being literally honest about it. It's just very hard. And now after COVID, I found a solution somewhat to this hand issue I've been having. And yeah, I'm itching to go out and play with my boys, man. I really am. But there's still a part of me inside that's going, yeah, but you can't afford to go out there and do a full tour and come home broke or in the hole, man. So
right.
It's literally, I guess what I'm saying, guys, is as much as this business has been rewarding and, you've done what you've done and your accolades are what, nobody can take those from you. But deep down inside, you still realize, man, you have to be careful in what you do. And you have to really pay close attention to, hey, gee, man, I'd really, really love to do that. But so I'm more happy than I've ever been in that I'm running this studio project with Kenny. I'm teaching and, working on other people's tunes, working on my own records. So right now I feel like I'm more settled in myself more so than I've ever been, if that makes sense.
Oh, yes, it does.
I feel like I can get up during the day and, I like for the last few years, I've focused on my health. Gosh, I've lost 150 some pounds and, and did it the old natural way, working out and eating right,
Yeah.
So what I'm getting at is it's like, I actually have time now to go, wow, I don't feel like the phone's blowing up with 80 people wanting me to do different things. And I can actually go, well, today, hey, I might do a workout, might read God's word for an hour, and then I might, go down in the studio and work for a while, but I got to teach it too. and
Yeah.
2 o'clock to 7 o'clock or whatever,
Mhm.
And so my days line out better, but yet it's still kind of free formed. If I want to take a coffee break, I can, And what was so great about the studio thing for me too, guys, is when I had these hand troubles, even though I was playing all these instruments, if I really started having a cramping thing, I could stop.
Mhm.
See, to me, when you're having those kind of problems, being in a studio, you can hit stop and walk away. But when
Right.
you're on the stage and you got an audience in front of you, you can't just go, sorry,
Yep.
folks, I've had hand troubles, I'm done.
Yeah.
Because then you got people wanting their money back from the ticket,
Yeah.
So I just really felt like, here again, man, it's just, I always believe that things happen for reasons. And so having this studio opportunity now, man, with these hand troubles has worked out absolutely perfect for me. Do I hope to get back on the road one day? Oh, yeah. But I'm never going to lose the studio bug now that I have it. So,
Yeah. Right.
So I'm just really blessed, man. And Chris, I swear, buddy, I could go on all night with you boys. I'm having a ball.
Yeah, man. Hey.
Awesome.
But I have to be up very early for a dentist appointment in the morning. So,
Okay. Well,
Oh,
Johnny, I can't thank you enough for your time and
my
your
goodness,
insight.
brother, I am so thrilled to get a chance to do this with you because, as I said, I didn't even know if you knew me or and I.
Are you kidding me?
Even when I watched you on Facebook, I'm like, man, I might just say, hey, bro, how are you? But I didn't know you personally, so I thought, well, gosh, I don't want to be one of these, hey, Dick, could you show me some more arpeggios, man?
Oh wait, that's me.
But real quick
Hey, man,
before
I
we
can do
sign
it.
off.
Oh yeah, man, that was great, cool, dude. And then you hear Chris, and I'm like, yeah, okay, I think I'll give up on those arpeggios now.
Well, real quick, I do want to share with the audience. Some years back, I was doing a Nashville NAMM, and you were a booth over and across,
Okay.
and I knew it was you, and I came over to the booth. Arlen Roth was there.
Oh yeah.
Arlen Roth was hanging around, and I was just like, I didn't have the balls to say hello. I was just like,
oh gosh, man.
No, true story. And I kind of sat off to the side, and you of course, you're gracious to all the people around and stuff like that. You just so cool and so chill. But I was just like, anything that I'm going to say right now is just going to sound silly. So I just kind of hung out to the side and listened. But yeah, I
think the only thing I've said to you on Facebook is just unbelievable or awesome, or just put like a one-word thing because I'm like, man, I don't want to sound like I'm gurming him to death,
No, I remember just kind of walking away from the booth and just shaking my head, going, you know what, maybe I could make the guitar into something else.
But no, I swear, but I'm a huge fan of what you do, Chris. I really mean that, brother. I'm just glad that we're part of the Mutual Admiration Society, buddy.
Well, I appreciate that, man.
Because I really do believe, man, we're all that's the thing I was mentioning before. I feel like guys in our generation really do love and respect each other, and I think it's just amazing, man. And I hope the kids that are out there today, have that same feeling, man. I look at guys like, like, man, I cried when Chet died. I cried when Bucky Pizzarelli passed. I cried when Jeff Beck just passed. I mean, gosh, it just, they're part of like every single guitar player has a part of this heart somewhere.
Yeah, it's a fabric.
It's like they all have a piece of who you are. Because have I learned Jeff Beck licks? Well, I've tried. Am I great at the whammy bar? No, but I've learned a few Jeff Beck things along the way.
Yeah,
or tried to,
Right.
And so it's like, there's all these little pieces of all my favorite guitar players, and so I mean, it's like everybody has got a little piece of your heart, and some more than others, where your style comes from certain players, but I think everybody, man, we all have. There's such like when I see Steve Vai, man, I still want to hug his neck. I love the man. He was the first man to give me not only not only give me a record deal, but to believe in me enough to say, "Hey, kid, I'll work with you."
Yeah.
You know, but yet such an icon. You know, I give Steve Vai so much love and gratitude, man. He's just incredible.
Beautiful.
And you know, like Joe Satriani, I've only hung with Joe once. And the funny thing is, man, all I wanted to say to him was, God, dude, you've been such an inspiration.
Yeah.
You know, because the Chicken and Cheese and all those tunes, man, happened from writing like Joe.
Yeah. I hear it.
I mean, gosh, man, but it's like, I just want to thank Joe, because it's like, man, without his writing style, I never would have learned to write instrumentals, you know, if it weren't for him.
Yeah. Gotcha.
Because to me, out of all the shred heads, man, Satch's tunes made sense. Like, wow, you can really hear the head. You can really hear this chorus. You can really hear when the solo hits. You can really, and it was like his songs melded, you know, so well, you know, that it was like, God, I want to have that. I want to have that feel to the songs I write.
Yeah.
And so now, granted, Maestro is Maestro, man. I mean, he's in there, right? But then again, you know, I loved Van Halen. I loved the fact that you could listen to, you know, Ain't Talking About Love, or man, I loved the For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge album. I mean, gosh, I wore that thing flat out.
Yeah.
And then, you know, when I got to play with Sammy, we did, you know, stuff off, you know, Finish What You Started, you know, off the Balance album.
Yeah.
And, you know, to play with Michael and Sammy, man, what an awesome dream come true that was, you know?
Yeah.
And so, and then to have Hank 3 be the guy who kept me in town and then allowed me to, you know, play on all those records with him and go out for a few dates with him. I had a ball, man. So I'm just always so grateful. Now, I know, obviously, Hank 3 is not known as a guitar player, but I guess, you know, we have so many people in our heart that have helped us along the way or inspired us. And I just want all the kids that see this to realize we need to keep all of that going, man. We need to keep the Mutual Admiration Society alive.
I agree. I think
we really do.
Very well said.
Never lose the love of the instrument and never forget who got you there.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, that's the truth.
I think that's the title.
Well, there you go.
I think we have a title to the podcast.
There you go, brother. There you go. Well, I can't thank you boys enough for having me on tonight. And blessings to everybody. If you don't have a Kiesel guitar yet, you better get one.
That's right. Get your own.
KieselGuitars.com or call 858-GUITARS. But no, man, I just encourage everybody to check me out on Facebook at Johnny Hiland Official. And you know, if you're interested in band tracks or lessons or anything, I'm actually throwing my personal email out. It's highland007@comcast.net.
And that will also be in the description below for the show.
Right on, bud.
All of Johnny's is not only his email, but also his website and all that great stuff.
Yep, JohnnyHiland.net, Johnny Hiland Official on Facebook. You got it, brother.
And get yourself a Johnny Hiland Kiesel guitar.
That's right. That's right.
I'll get all that in the description and all that good stuff. But yeah, absolutely.
Well, I appreciate you guys a lot, man. And you know, I like I said, man, there needs to be more of these shows out there, guys. There really does. And Chris, I love the way you guys do it, man. When the toast, just let her rip, baby, chill.
That's what we do.